Hello,
Uh,
Cranks.
Hello there. Were you talking to me?
Yes. Yes, I was. Sorry, everybody, about that. Apparently, oh,
Uh,
apparently,
uh,
apparently, you can't play clips of things that aren't yours without stopping them and doing commentary. But like, who's gonna who? How do they know so quickly?
well, that's what I was trying to tell you.
Yeah, I know. I thought you were
Is
full of
that
beans.
what?
I thought you were just full of beans, full of fava beans.
No, I killed lots of people. I'm very scary. And you need me to help you stop the Unabomber.
Yes. Did I get reported? No, I got full of beans. I got Strucketh. So DB, who's Dr. Walla? Since you're here, Mr. Lecter, Hanny Lechty.
Dr. Walla is the DEA agent who comes to speak to me in the movie.
Right. Can you say more about that?
She's a student and she's very afraid of me.
Why? Why is she so afraid of you?
Because I am a serial killer.
Okay. So Dr. Walla is a psychologist. I'm blurry. Ugh, how do I get this to fix it, DB? Okay.
I am the Dr. Hannibal Lecter.
You're laughing at yourself. I can hear you chuckling behind your
That was
trying not to.
Excuse me. That was a hostage I have here that wasn't laughing, actually.
Who in the chat thinks that DB's actually seen the full Silence of the Lambs movie start to finish? Who actually thinks that Mr. DB has actually seen it? 1 for yes, 2 for no.
Seen the movie. I know about the DEA agent that comes to stop the kidnapping, and they put the ointment on the head again. There's ointment.
There's no ointment. It's not ointment. It's lotion.
Well, I mean, I'm a doctor. I know the difference, and I would say that there's not a meaningful difference between the two.
Steven says, I think he was in it. Okay. So, I don't know, Deebs. You and I have talked about Dr. Ball a little bit, right?
Yes.
Oh, Yellow Jacket says, what are we putting twos in the chat? I said, who in here actually thinks that DB has watched Silence of the Lambs, the film, from start to finish at any point in life? 1 for yes, 2 for no. And most people have said 2. So I don't know why, Deebs, but interesting. Why is he doing Jack Nicholson? Hi, Shell Herba. Yes, it's Walla time. To be fair, Lindsay's never seen it either. Bree says 2. Court of Public Opinion says 3. Judy says yes. Your anagrams are showing doctor. Okay. Anyway, we talked about what what Silence of the Lambs is. Basically, it's just a psychological thriller about a serial killer and named Buffalo Bill, and Jodie Foster plays a FBI agent, psychology student with the behavioral analysis unit. And she's going to go in and talk to Hannibal Lecter, serial killer who's in prison, and see if he can help her solve the... Hey, Deebs.
Hello there. How's everyone doing?
I'm so glad that it's this version of you and not whatever that was. Welcome.
Who was that? Was that Hannibal Lecter?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my.
Mm-hmm. Courtney's still asking what the 2 is for. I can't hear shit. Courtney is in a Texas Roadhouse right now. So she can't hear us. 1 for yes, DB has watched Silence all the way through. 2 for hell no, never seen it.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. It's not like this is some kind of crazy movie that people haven't watched. You know, I know that it's a 1991 American psychological horror thriller film directed by Jonathan Demme. So, like, I don't know why you guys are ridiculous about it. Like, I know that it had a $19 million budget, but did $270 million worldwide. Like, I know this movie very well.
Yeah. Okay, good. It's actually one of your favorites, right?
Yes, I thought that the story of the cannibalistic serial killer in prison in the Baltimore State Hospital for the criminally insane was really entertaining.
Okay.
DB can't
All right.
handle silence.
Can't take silence. DB is IMDb.
You know, I'd say the silence doesn't really work with me because people are usually laughing hysterically at the things I'm saying, so I'm just kind of letting them recover.
Yeah, that makes sense. Stop reading the wiki. Have you all ever put the phone speaker right up against your ear while DB is talking? 10 out of 10. Highly recommend.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, he's got quite a baritone. Okay. If it's all the same to you, Mr. Deebs, I want to talk about Dr. Walla. What do you think about Dr. Walla? What do you know about Dr. Walla? Have we ever talked about Dr. Walla?
You know, I thought she was a real character.
No.
Real main character.
Yeah.
Can I mean, like, I don't want to be too disparaging towards
Why?
the defense, but like, I think they were a little soft on her post trial. Like, some of the conversations they were having, they were like, "Oh, she's like Daffy Duck. Like, how weird is it that she wanted the bridge?" Hey, dude, she like falsified documents that caused Ricky to get fucking a 5-inch needle into his fucking spine. Like,
yeah, Dr. Walla literally is how do I want to say this? Yeah, you're right. I don't think that I laugh a little bit. I laughed about them calling her Daffy Duck. I thought that was really funny because like she's just so unserious, right? But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, no, she's not Daffy Duck. She's not Daffy Duck. She's Hannibal Lecter, you know? She's basically Hannibal Lecter, in my opinion. Yeah, I think that the defense was so mind-fucked by the gaslighting they didn't know which way it was up. I agree with that.
yeah, I thought she was very much like an animated cartoon character created by the animators Tex Avery and Bob Clamford for Looney Tunes. I agree.
Yeah. So I definitely think that I probably wouldn't characterize her as Daffy Duck anymore, but that's okay. So yeah, voyeur.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. This might be really fucking stupid. I don't get that joke.
Daffy Duck.
Yeah.
Like she's like a cartoon. She's like an unserious cartoon character. I would play a clip of Daffy Duck, but I already got struck with once.
Is Daffy Duck not serious? I thought he was a fucking conniving little fuck. But
right.
Okay.
He's an unserious little cartoony kind of like in the little instigator, you know?
Okay, other people don't get it. And very
okay.
smart people. So
true.
I got it. I feel much better about that. I heard that reference and I like heard Angela laughing one time and I was like, man, I was kind of stressed out. I was like, what the fuck are they talking about?
Donald Duck is a conniving fuck, said DB.
That's what I'm saying, Bree. Exactly. That's exactly what I was saying, man.
Yeah. Regardless. Here is Dr. Walla. This was outside of the hearing. The summer hearings. She testified July 31st, 2024. Courtney Yellowjacket, wife, love of my life, was at the hearing where Dr. Walla testified. And she gave us some really good insight about what she testified to, what the defense asked her. They asked her a lot of questions about basically the hearing over the summer. Her testimony at that hearing, July 31st, 2024, was wildly different than her testimony at trial. She was flanked with the Animaniacs Yellowjacket, the one that has all the animals and like holds them close and like suffocates them. That's Dr. Walla with all of her little pets, you know?
Well, that's also that's actually the recording artist Zach Bryan. Before he was famous, he wrote something in the orange just right after this. So
amazing. Moonlight's this is so specific and like so accurate. Moonlight selling cell phone cases.
She looks like an Apple buddy with that black on black outfit, dude. She looks like she's about to give you the 2 for $20 fucking special.
So like okay. So here's what I'll say. Pick me. #pick me. First of all, Dr. Walla is a cop. End of discussion. Dr. Wall's a cop. Look at her. She's a cop. She's a cop. She's an agent of the state. She's a cop. So that's my first issue. Hey, Kira.
That's what I'm saying.
Julie says she's a joke, which makes the state look like a joke, which made Indiana look like a joke. The joke isn't funny. She is all of those things. She is also dangerous. So I'm going to give a little background on Dr. Walla first. So Dr. Walla first came to the attention of the public through, I don't know which filing, but it was, I mean, her name was known for a while. If anyone remembers specifically, I don't know if it was like when the state filed something. I knew that we knew about Dr. Walla either around the same time or before or after we heard about Dr. Westcott. I have no idea. This is so true. We're going to talk about this. But Dr. Walla is the lead psychologist, or was the lead psychologist at Westville Correctional Facility for, I think she was hired in 2018, 2017, 2018.
It was a motion for admissibility for the confession.
Amazing. Do you have it by any chance? I can pull it up if not.
I could find it.
Okay. Okay. So motion for admissibility for the confessions, probably, I imagine, filed by the state. So they talk about the confessions. This is also true. Anyone ever notice that like a lot of Odinites, their wives have like really intensely box-dyed, bright, purplish, reddish purple hair? Anyway, lying LARPer from LARPville. So Dr. Walla was the psychologist that was treating, overseeing, and responsible for Richard Allen's care while he was in Westville Correctional Facility. What we learned about Dr. Walla, and I don't know when this came out, I know the Cranks did a Google, did a Cecil, and found some, not only was Dr. Walla like in a lot of the Delphi murders Facebook groups, but Dr. Walla participated in the discussion and even commented on the case within the Delphi murders Facebook groups. And that's concerning for a lot of reasons. I think for me, the most concerning part about it is that Dr. Walla, Dr. Walla was following the Delphi murders case prior to being assigned as Richard Allen's psychologist before he was her patient. So that's thank you, DB. So this is our motion. I'm going to pull up the actual one. Here it is. State request for pretrial ruling on admissibility. Share.
I'm in my mum's car.
You never let them play. You never just let them. It's like you do it and then you get bashful and you stop them. You never just let them play, Deeps. If you're going to do it, like, do it, you know?
Okay.
Sorry, Deeps. I've been bullying you a lot lately. Here is the state's request for pretrial ruling on admissibility. This was filed May 6th, 2024, and the trial was scheduled to begin in like a week as of the date of this filing. So that's interesting. Comes now the state of Indiana. This is May 6th, 2024. Requests a pretrial ruling as to the admissibility of certain communications made by Richard Allen to a psychologist. In support of this request, the state, I agree with this, submits the following. Richard Allen has access to mental health services. Oh, he has access to mental health services?
Wow, what a fucking privilege, dude.
Right, a privilege. I honestly wish he didn't. Where he's been housed for safekeeping pursuant to court order. Mental health personnel employed by Centurion Health provide psychologists and or counselors to whom Richard Allen has made statements. In particular, Dr. Monica H. Walla, psychologist, a psychologist licensed to practice in the state of Indiana, has documented statements of Richard Allen, which the state believes fall within an exception to confidentiality, pursuant to this very specific, very niche, very specific,
Niche.
totally outrageous exception to this confidentiality, like Indiana specific rule that says all communication between a patient and doctor are privileged, except if he happens to give you information about an investigation into a homicide. Like, weird. But anyway, here it is. According to Indiana Code 25-33-1-17, privileged communication between psychologists and clients states in part, a psychologist licensed under this article may not disclose any information acquired from persons with whom they have dealt with in a professional capacity, except under the following circumstances. 1, trials for homicide, when the disclosure relates directly to the fact or the immediate circumstances of the homicide. It's like, did Nick write this himself? You know, like, did you write that, Nick? Even though he didn't. The state intends to offer evidence into evidence. The state intends to offer into evidence the testimony of Dr. Monica Walla as documented in her reports entitled DOC Behavioral Health Suicide Observation. We're going to talk about this in a second. The state seeks this ruling for the sole purpose of expediting the presentation of evidence during trial. Yeah, to put the defendant on notice as to the evidentiary exception and to obtain a pretrial ruling on admissibility, which of course then the defense, I think, objected. Sure, they did. Dr. Martin came into Indiana because he got fired from Florida prisons. Also true. Dr. Martin got fired from Florida and came to Indiana because he literally just watched a patient starve to death. All right, so that is how we learned of Dr. Walla. Very soon after, the cranks did a Google. Not just the cranks, a lot of people did a Google. They're like, who is this? Who is this Walla woman? So we're going to look at Dr. Walla. I have a lot of strong feelings about Dr. Walla and her conduct. If that surprises you, then you're probably new here.
I'm really more on the fence about it and trying to, remain neutral.
You're trying to suspend your belief, right?
Yeah, a lot of people have been talking about how that's really an honorable thing to do, and so
yeah,
I'm an honorable person, so I've been suspending, and we're not making fun of Brooke's hair color. Brooke J, we like your hair color. Your hair color is actually way fucking better.
Dr. Walla could never. Yeah, that's that's fire. That deep's not even close. Not even in the same ballpark.
Dude, I'm a boy, okay?
You are a boy. You are a boy. Indeed, you are a boy. Let's talk about who Dr. Walla is. Here's me doing a yap. I don't know when this is from. Probably trial. Yeah, October 30th. Here's your Dr. Walla. Publicly opining about a case while Richard Allen has been her patient for over a year. Just wondering who... So this is the question, right? Just wondering, who does everybody watch on YouTube? This was a question posed in one of the Delphi Murder Facebook groups, right?
Well, that's a great
Dr.
question.
Walla.
I don't think... if I was a state witness that was going to testify in an upcoming murder trial, I wouldn't see anything wrong with commenting and answering this specific question.
Well, you're just not being honest. So this is from March 15th, 2024. March 15th, 2024. Richard Allen is her patient. He has been her patient for a year and a half almost at this point. He became her patient October 2020. Well, let's see. If we go by the state's timeline, he became her patient in November 2022. If we go by the actual timeline, he became her patient in October 2022. So this question is, who does everybody watch on YouTube? And Dr. Walla chimes in, Gray Hughes. Ain't that something? Number 1, Gray Hughes. This is the attorney. This is the psychologist who has.
Gray Hughes is a psychologist?
Oh, no, Dr. Walla, DB, I'm going to kill you. This is so gross. Like, when I think of Gray Hughes, I think of literally somebody who just vehemently devoted to the state and the patties and the guilt of this defendant. That's what I think of when I think of Gray Hughes. I think that of someone who will just do whatever has to be done to push the guilt narrative. And the fact that, and he's unkind and disparaging and entirely just totally the opposite of who I would want my psychologist watching, if you know what I mean. And the content of Gray Hughes live streams is not just like Delphi a little, it's exclusively Delphi. Exclusively Rick Allen is guilty. And he's horribly, horribly mean. And this is the first person that Dr. Walla mentions. Interesting. Continuing on. So she watches Grey Hughes, Delphi After Dark for the drama. Oh, wait, it gets better. True Crime Investigates. That's Anthony Greeno, is it not? That's terrifying. Notice she doesn't say anything about it for the drama. And then she throws in Criminality and Defense Diaries. We know that she watches Defense Diaries, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Sleuth Intuition. His calm tone is unnerving. Then why do you watch it? Why do you watch it? It's interesting. So anyway, this is what Dr. Walla had to say, right? Concerning. More concerning, even still. She would watch. Judgy, have you not seen this before? Sounds like she enjoys being unnerved, doesn't it? Dr. Walla was in nearly every single Delphi Murders Facebook group. Many of them she had joined prior to the arrest of Richard Allen. Many she joined after Rick was already her patient. Dr. Walla joined Delphi Murders, Drama, Gossip and Facts, August 30th, 2022. What was going on? Oh, yeah, that's Anthony. What was going on August 30th, 2022? As Granny said, minnows in their boots, ISP, wrapping up their Wabash Clam Jam disaster of a river search when the Delphi murders were all in the news, all over the place. Here's one, Delphi Murders Case Discussion and Fact Checks. December 21st, 2021, 3 weeks after the Anthony Shots announcement is made, and almost an entire year before Richard Allen is even arrested. Okay, interesting. Same one, December 21st. Delphi After Dark, August 30th, 2022. Interesting. Continued. Murder Sheet, August 25th, 2022. Delphi Murder Let's Chat, November 30th, 2022. A month after Richard Allen becomes her patient at Westville Correctional Facility. In her own name. Down the Hill, The Unsolved Murders, June 9th, 2022. Months before. Delphi Murders Uncensored, November 12th. 2 weeks after Rick becomes her patient at Westville Correctional Facility. 2 weeks. Okay. Here's my biggest red flag, red alert, holy fucking shit about Dr. Walla. The most concerning social media behavior of Dr. Walla was her joining the Defense Diaries Facebook group on June 15th, 2023. The very day that her patient, Richard Allen's safekeeping hearing was held, where specifics about his medical and mental health treatment within the Indiana Department of Correction would be addressed. Defense Diaries. Now, why is this interesting to me? Because Bob Mata was one of the only people that attended the safekeeping hearing, June 2023. He was one of the only people that attended and reported on that. And she joined it that day, obviously looking for updates as to what was occurring in the pretrial hearing for her patient, Richard Allen. That's really disgusting. That's really scary. She shouldn't have even known about his legal case at all. But yeah, she thought that was appropriate. So, right, this is also like, girl. Finally, a letter from inmate Robert Baston, who outlines specific, since verified abuse and mistreatment of Richard Allen while in DOC. He also describes Dr. Walla's alleged complicity in the abuse. Gull went on to hide this letter from the public for 5 months. Shall we read it together? Here's an excerpt. Officer Quentin Davis punches me in the ribs and stomach, breaking my ribs. Former officer and now Sergeant Motts kneed me in the face while corrupt Westville Correctional Facility warden John Gallipoux and mental health Dr. Monica Walla and Miss Bourne watched the beatdown. No, Officer Quentin Davis also has a federal lawsuit on him for assaulting an inmate, blah, 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 medical treatment. Now, I don't know. I have no idea if this happened or not, but a lot of the claims in Mr. Bastin's letters were verified, and yeah. We also know that John Gallipool and Dr. Walla had a habit of just kind of hanging out around Rick's cell, which is weird. It's a weird thing for why would the warden want to hang out in the maximum security secured housing unit, the jail, the prison within the prison? Why would he want to hang out in there? Just chilling, just hanging out. Dr. Walla just in there chilling every single day. Just wanted to. Cool. So that's concerning. And then, yep. And we know Bastin was a witness in a pretrial evidentiary hearing. Remember that Bastin was supposed to attend the June 15th, 2023 hearing. Remember that? Wow, that's even scarier now that I think about it. Bastin was supposed to be the number one, like the key defense witness to talk about Richard Allen's treatment. And he was supposed to attend that hearing in June, the one that talked about Rick Allen's safekeeping, the one that Walla wanted really bad to know what was going on in, the one that Bob Motta attended. Although, unfortunately, Mr. Bastin never made it to that hearing because Gull gave Carroll County Sheriff's and Department of Corrections a stand-down order. She did not make them transport him. That makes Gull a witness. And Tobe was like, no, the judge, that was the judge. And you know what? Honestly, I believe Tobe. I'm sure that Gull was like, no, it's okay. It's all right. Totally fine. Cool. There's Kat. Bastin was on point from the jump. And of course, you know, certain people will tell you that Bastin's not credible because of the crimes that he's been convicted of, which are horrible. However, if we're not going to give any credence to the firsthand accounts of Bastin, then we should give no credence to anything that the fucking inmate suicide companions have to say, because they're all charged with crime, with felonies, and a lot of them are charged with the same thing as Bastin. So, like, I mean, if we're going to take what they say, which we did, not we, but the court did, Rick was convicted based on the literal lies of suicide companions. So, yeah, he had nothing to gain. So that's interesting. Yes, she basically, they were like, he doesn't want to come, and Gull's like, that's okay, don't bring him. Okay, interesting. So that's a little intro into Dr. Walla and the ethics surrounding her. Let's just say they're very questionable. They're very questionable. I'm very scared thinking about the fact that Dr. Walla was treating Rick. Oh, wait. So Dr. Walla also, I know I'm all over the place, but we're going to get into a timeline of Rick's confessions pretty soon. Stephen is here. Thank you, Mr. Stephen. Former chief of police of Delphi, now current chief of police of Delphi, former investigator for the prosecutor, and our BFF, Stephen, is here. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. And thank you for making me laugh literally every day. It's ridiculous. You're insane, and your memes are on point. To be honest, I don't think that Tobe is an inherently bad guy, not a great cop, probably well-intentioned. Wait, what? Okay. Here we go. Oops. Wouldn't it be so bad if there was some kind of correlation between Gray Hughes coming into info only Wallace should have had and publicly sharing it, and Wallace's Facebook comment stating that she liked to listen to Gray Hughes? Like, if they were both posted on the same exact day, that would look bad. So we're going to get to this in a second, Court. On March 15th, Gray Hughes alleges that Richard Allen saw Brad Weber's van come home. Details that Wallace says are part of Rick's confession. The very same day, Dr. Walla makes a post in a Delphi Facebook group about liking Gray Hughes. Wouldn't that be insane? Wouldn't that be crazy? Oops, I can't zoom for some reason. Here we go. Well, says Gray Hughes, when Brad Weber drove home that day, he was seen by Richard Allen. You will find that out someday. Will we? Will we? Okay. So Dr. Walla and Gray Hughes do a little yap, I believe. Interesting. March 15th. March 15th. This is also a very interesting lawsuit. March 15th, time-stamped. That's called a receipt. Keith, this snake is trying to say it wasn't in the discovery. As the freaks know, we discussed this a long time ago, and even last night, the white van, can I get a boom? Likely going to be Brad Weber's van coming home from work. Where's the clip? I have the clip somewhere. We're going to play the clip. I think Yellow Jacket did a thread here too. Interesting. Where is it? Interesting, considering Nick never even got approval to obtain Rick's medical records until April 2nd. So even he shouldn't have known about anything that Waller allegedly wrote down. This is April 2nd, 2024, everybody. 2024. There you go. That's very interesting. Thank you, Melissa Dotson. Fog reveal. Fog reveal. Forgot about this. I got 5 burners for Gary. Oh my God. I forgot about this. This is a sidebar, but remember when Barbara posted the thing about Rick Allen's daughter getting on the stand and she misquoted what she said? I deleted a post about it because another set of pool notes and another reporter said she did testify she loves her dad and that he didn't molest her and that she would not lie for him. Is this a fucking joke, Barbara? Oh, poor Barbara. Poor Barbara doesn't get, yeah. Anyway. All right. One more thing with Gary Hughes. Like I said, we are nothing if not thorough and full of receiptage, which is more than I can say for the other side. That's not the right one. Maybe it's, oh, here's the right one. March 29th. Gray Hughes investigates. Let's watch. He's going to strike me? He won't strike me, right? Gray Hughes won't strike me. I dare him.
Okay.
Commentary. This is commentary. Bitch. Who's he texting? Who are you texting, Gary?
Yeah. So just think about it like this.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Like
Greg.
Allen,
Yeah.
he confessed to different witnesses. One of them was a psychologist.
Psychologist is a witness.
This video, again, is from March 15th. No, it's not. When is this from?
This is one day
This
after
is
the
29th. March 29th. It's one day what?
after the safekeeping hearing.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, fine.
So it's March 29th.
Okay, fine.
But it's still 30th, 31. It's still 4 days before Nick McClellan put that filing out, and 4 days before Nick should have even, like, how did Nick know? Nick's like, oh, I want Dr. Walla's records because Rick made a confession to her. How would he have known that if he didn't have the records yet? You know what I'm saying? And obviously we know how. And it's interesting that Gray knew that it was a psychologist and not a psychiatrist or a nurse or a therapist specifically, but a psychologist. That's a great point, Chelsea. That's a really good point. So having said that.
And I don't know. And so yeah, and the thing is this is just a rumor. Okay, this is a rumor.
Rumor.
Yeah, might be a decent rumor, but it's a rumor nevertheless. Okay, so what if, Richard Allen at the crime scene, when he told one of his psychologists that maybe he saw something specific while he was at the crime scene, and why?
Maybe Richard Allen, hypothetically, this is just a rumor, a really good one. Maybe
This
he
guy
told
must
his
be a lawyer or something, man. He's just genius with the disclosures here.
The disclosures and the disclaimers.
Why he sped things along and ran away. For example, what if you saw maybe Kay Weber's son driving home in his van and told the psychologist that exact thing, and it's shown that his van
son, like
exactly at
he's
that
fucking
time.
50-year-old dude. He's called
What?
Brad Weber, bro.
You what?
You could just call him Brad Weber.
Right. Why does he have to call him Kay Weber's son? Right. Yeah, just spitballing here. But go with me, guys. What if? What if? That's how they pitched it to Walla. What a silly goose, just being silly and having an imagination time. Woman says he can't afford a full hat. Just spitballing. What do I know? Shibugi's could tease this man all day. I love Shibugi's teasing. I love it.
Wouldn't that be interesting? Wouldn't that be an interesting thing?
It sure would, Gray. It sure would. It sure would be interesting. Let's talk about what else would be interesting, because I have a couple interesting things I want to talk about today too, that are just rumors.
Like what your forehead looks like. We want to know.
We'll never know though, because it's covered with a quarter of a hat. So I'm told that only douchebags wear visors though, so it's weird. Like it's like a prerequisite to purchase a visor. You have to be like a certified fucking douchebag, is what I'm told.
Yeah, or a pickleball player, which I guess is kind of, there's a lot of overlap. What the fuck?
Right.
Who's slamming the door in my house?
Boone. So many useful idiots for the state. The fuck is the point of a visor anyway, especially if you're inside? If you're out there and you can help the channel. Half-hatted man. Y'all know that the only confession used at trial and in the April order from the state were only heard... The only confessions that were used at trial and in the April order from the state were only heard by Dr. Wallet and the warden. So the only confessions that weren't phone calls, I'm guessing, and this is why we need the transcript, the only confessions that weren't like recorded phone call confessions were just word of mouth from Walla and the warden, right? Yes, and also the most specific confession, quote confession about the box cutter and the van and all of that shit was per Walla, right? Yes. Look at my ears doing a thing again. Look how red my ears. Oh my god, it's gonna I'm gonna die.
Yeah, you're all fucked up, dude.
I'm like so fucked up, dude. All right, so that's interesting to me. So here's something else about Dr. Walla that I think might be interesting. Now, I would argue that this woman has some concerning ethics. Is that fair? Yes. Okay. So concerning ethics, there's another thing. Now, granted, I'm going to do a disclaimer here and a preface and a whatever. I have no definitive proof that this is Dr. Walla, but it is interesting, and I'm going to share it anyway. Just something that someone came across that's very interesting. So this is like a website for people. I guess it's like a message board for people with like hoarding disorder who are looking for specific assistance, hoarding help, house cleaning. Now, hoarding disorder is a mental health condition. Diagnosis is in the DSM-5. So what's weird about this, though, is that hoarding studies help find answers. Monica Walla made a post in 2015. My name is Monica Walla. I'm a doctoral student in the clinical psychology department at the Illinois School of Professional Psychology in Schaumburg, Illinois. I'm working on my clinical research product studying the effects of hoarding on the lives of adults with a focus on early adulthood, an area that's poorly researched in the current literature. Participants must be between the ages of 18 and 40 and must exhibit significant symptoms of hoarding. Participants will be asked to take a simple online survey. Those who qualify and complete it will receive a $10 token of our appreciation. If you qualify, please complete the survey below. Okay. This doesn't work anymore. I tried. So, to be fair, it's not totally uncommon for students or researchers to solicit participants for their research study from, to find them in places like online or groups or whatever. I don't love that. But it's just interesting that we're using the internet and we're using a website where people with hoarding disorder go for support and help, and we're soliciting people for our study. I just don't love it. I don't love it. I used to do so many research studies with doctoral students. I once got paid $600 to sit in an MRI machine and hit buttons. That's awesome. So anyway, that's just a little something about Dr. Walla. I don't know how, obviously when we're in grad school or PhD doctoral school, our field of study and our field of interest can change. So that's interesting. Weird. Brian Koberger allegedly did something similar, and that's allegedly proof that he was planning to be a serial killer. Well, of the two, I don't know. I haven't seen a whole lot of evidence of never mind. We'll talk about that another time. Anyway, that's just one thing that I wanted to share. I'm just going through my tabs here because I have a lot of tabs open about things I wanted to share. Shit. Fuck. Just lost one. Here it is. Okay. So
I can talk about something real quick if you are looking for something.
No, no, go ahead. Do it. Do a yap. Do a talk.
So something I looked at a while ago was this homicide exception. I think is very interesting. And I was doing some research on it. And obviously we all have read the statute itself. It's an exception to privilege, which basically means where privilege would normally apply, it doesn't, whereas it's not a full waiver. So if you look at cases mentioning the statute in Indiana, a lot of times it's like the state subpoenas the institution and they're looking for usually evidence of diminished capacity, and then they end up getting something else. With this homicide exception, it's not like they go to the state and talk about it. Like somebody would have had to have specifically told them that they would have had a statement that qualified for this and that they're willing to share it enough. I know they filed a subpoena for it too, if I recall, but there's this case. You guys have ever heard of the podcast called Counterclock? There's a case about Jeff Pelly and his father, Bob Pelly, and his family. He did a familicide, allegedly. Well, basically this, come to find out, dude, he was in a boys' home for a little while, and when he was there, I think for 3 years or something like that, he was talking to his counselor. And so they said that the state basically said that they thought there was protected communications that related to an evaluation that the doctor did there, and they thought that it was specific enough of him talking about the homicides to be able to get it. And basically, it had to relate directly to the facts or immediate circumstances of the homicide. That's what it says in the statute. There's a statutory exception allowing for disclosure. So they would have had to like literally talk about something that's like factual with the act of homicide. And I think that's why they focus so much on the only thing a killer would know at the beginning of when they were talking about this evidence. But so the trial court ended up allowing, or they ended up saying that they couldn't use it. And the state went back to them and said basically the court abused their discretion, finding the homicide exception inapplicable. They did it in camera review eventually. The state was like being a little bitch about it. And the court first determined the counselor's client privilege statute did not apply retroactively because this was passed in 1990 and they wanted to get communications in 1986. And so there's a bunch of other cases where they've denied it. The courts have denied it, but Pelley ended up winning part of his appeal. And one of the things that they then litigated was Pelley wanted somebody else's confession. Somebody else confessed to the crime to a psychologist at IDOC. And part of their appeal was that they wanted to subpoena those records, and the state denied, or the state fought it, saying that the exception didn't apply. And so a lot of times, if you look it up from that angle, you'll see some cases where they're actually like saying that they can't, the defendants can't use it when it applies to third party guilt.
Someone else, right? It only counts if it incriminates the defendant. It doesn't count if it's another party making an admission or a statement that it relates to that homicide investigation or trial, but it doesn't support the guilt of the defendant. Love that.
Fucked up.
Love that. That is fucked up. It's very fucked up.
So real quick last thing on that. One of his attorneys who litigated was this attorney named Stacey Juliana. Good times.
Stacey Juliana litigated that, and how did it resolve?
She definitely had a really good brief. It sounds like she made some really, 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 really good. There's some really good issues, but I think the dude is pretty much fucked.
Yeah.
They didn't deny it on that. It was denied off a bunch of different claims, but there's like a fucking long ass opinion. Like it's pretty brutal. It's like a Judge Hitler opinion where they're just like, let's look at every single line and let's just fucking absolutely torture this dude's appellate chances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Love that. I love judges who just talk and when they shouldn't. So something that is frustrating about all of this, and I'm seeing in the chat, a lot of folks are talking about Walla's testimony at the hearings over the summer versus her testimony. God damn, I don't know why I can't have her during trial. One thing that's been really frustrating is when folks have tried to request the transcripts from the summer hearings, particularly for Walla's testimony when Walla was on the stand. This is the response that they got. So, good afternoon. The balance of the hearing that was not prepared is 7.5 hours. No one has requested it be prepared. It would be at the $575 per page rate, $1,322. Based on my current workload, I couldn't start it until the end of September or possibly into October, which is convenient because that's when trial would start, right? Per the rules on access to court records and by agreement of the parties, this enrages me. Whether it's true or not, it wouldn't be the first time that Gull and Jody have done a misinfo. But per the rules on access to court records and by agreement by the parties, meaning the state and the defense, no non-confidential version of the transcripts of Dr. Wall's testimony will be available to the public as it contains mental health records. That's not a thing. So for starters, the Supreme Court of Indiana, the original action that was filed and within Richard Allen's case, right? The writ was filed and brought before the Supreme Court of Indiana, and one of the issues was that things were being sealed. And Kara and Mark and Maggie, and if I'm forgetting someone, I'm sorry, in the OA that addressed the court records and the filings and the CCS fuckery, one of the things they said was, by agreement of the parties, it doesn't matter if both parties agree. They can't agree to violate public access. If something's public and it's public access and it should be, demonstrated as such in the whatchamacallit, the CCS, and if it should be public, period. The parties, it doesn't matter if they agree. They don't have, that's not a thing. They can't make an agreement to hide something that should be public. So, one, I don't know if this is true, but two, that doesn't matter because, by the way, this is exactly right. Agreement of the parties, the public is a party to that. We didn't agree to that. We didn't agree to that at all. Yeah. And the other thing is that there was no public hearing. If they wanted to seal it, they should have held a public hearing like they did in November 2022 with the PCA. And the other issue is that this is not mental health records. This is testimony, verbal testimony of Dr. Walla on the stand when at a public hearing that had already been attended by members of the public and the media, had already been reported on, people already taking notes and disseminating them, spoken word. None of that is mental health records. It's a transcript of a hearing that was public. So this is insane. The fact that they're hiding Dr. Walla's transcript from the summer hearings. And I asked a question on Twitter earlier today, and oops. Oh my God, Courtney's killing me. The question I asked was, you tweeted a lot today, huh? My gosh. Where did it go? Where did it go? Oh. Judge Gull refused to release the transcript from Dr. Walla's testimony at the summer 2024 hearings, citing the fact that the testimony involves mental health and medical information. That's not the real reason. Would y'all like to know the real reason? Everyone said yes. So I'm going to tell you, we're going to go there. We're going to talk about it. Okay. So we read that motion for admissibility filed by the state about the confessions, and then we had the summer hearings, the evidentiary hearings on admissibility of Rick's statements and based on, his treatment and safekeeping, etc. So now we're going to read Judge Gull's order. On August 24th, or 29th, my bad. Let me do this. Can y'all see this? On August 29th, 2024, Special Judge Fran Gull issued an order on the admissibility of statements made by Rick Allen while in the custody of the Indiana Department of Corrections. Her order states, the court, having had this matter under advisement following a hearing conducted on July 31st, 2024, on the defendant's motion to suppress and the state's motion to suppress and then the state's motion to dismiss and all of these motions, right? Blah, 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 blah. And having considered the witness's testimony, the exhibits admitted into evidence, the arguments of counsel, and the applicable statutes and case law, now grants the state's request for a pre-trial ruling on admissibility. The statements given by defendant to Dr. Monica H. Walla are not privileged based upon the exception noted in the statute, right? Okay, fine. All statements given by the defendant to Dr. Walla are admissible in the trial. Defendant's arguments to the contrary go to the weight the jury would give such statements, not their admissibility. Having taken the state's motion to dismiss, the motion to suppress, under advisement, the court agrees with the state. The defendant has failed to comply with the criminal rules of procedure by neglecting to clearly state which specific statements he's seeking to suppress, nor the legal basis for the suppression. Despite these deficiencies, the court has been able to despite these deficiencies, the court has been able to determine that the statements given to the defendant's family members were voluntary, not coerced by any state action, and were not made under threats of violence nor improper influence. Although the defendant is clearly in custody, he initiated the communication with his family, and he was not subject to custodial interrogation when he spoke to them. Further, the statements given by the defendant to the correctional officers, inmate companions, warden, mental health personnel, medical personnel, and the Indiana State Police were unsolicited by any of those individuals, and they were voluntarily given without coercion or interrogation. The defendant has not shown that he suffered from psychological coercion by the state, which caused him to make these statements. To the contrary, the evidence shows that he specifically sought out the warden by written communication that he initiated and verbal statements he offered to guards, inmate companions, mental health professionals, and medical personnel. The defendants failed to show that any of these statements were the result of coercive interrogation by the state or that they were the result of his The defendant has failed to show that any of these statements were the result of coercive interrogation by the state or that they were the result of his pretrial detention. The totality of the circumstances of the defendant's pretrial detention were not intended to force confessions from the defendant. Remember how we talked about a lot of times the state will do a thing where they say, it's not like what did Jerry Holman say to Rick during his interrogation? It's not like the bullet was planted there. This is not a movie. This is realistic. And it's like, nobody was talking about the bullet being planted but you, Jerry. And then when, a million examples of this the other day in the Hidden True Crime interview. The totality of the circumstances of the defendant's pretrial detention were not intended to force confessions from the defendant.
Wrong.
Does anyone here actually believe that that's true? Nav says, Then why do you have Brian Harshman sleeping in the attic? I'm big mad. This is realistic. Thank you, Deeves. It's very handsome. Dark mode. I really want to see that interrogation video. We will see it. We will see it. We said we were going to see the bridge guy video. We saw it. We're going to see the fucking interrogation videos. Trust me. We'll see them. Hi, Majesta Alexander. Welcome, new member. Welcome to the Crank family. Honorary new inductee to the Crank Kingdom. Self-snitch, DB, dark mode. Anyway, realistic, just like a fiction. Hey, USA Live. Then why torture him? Arguing that a pretrial defendant in prison is not custodial is insane. Yeah, the totality of the circumstances of Rick Allen's detention, of his pretrial detention, it wasn't intended to force confessions from him. I disagree. It wasn't intended to elicit and solicit more evidence against him.
Wrong.
It absolutely was. This is also true. I agree with this too. But that's not all, folks. That's not all. The defendant's pretrial detention is to protect him from harm. 2 + 2 = 4. The court is not persuaded that the detention caused the defendant to make incriminating statements. That's because the court, Judge Gull, is a subhuman weirdo. So I don't really care what she thinks. But the court is not persuaded that the detention caused the defendant to make the incriminating statements. While the defendant does suffer from major depressive disorder and anxiety, those are not serious mental illnesses that prevent the defendant from making voluntary statements, as if Judge Gull didn't just sit through over 8 hours of testimony from Dr. Walla, plus others at this point in time, who had literally diagnosed Rick with psychosis. 100% he had been diagnosed. There was no question about it. He was diagnosed with psychotic disorder. And yet, she literally says, he suffers from major depression and anxiety. Those are not serious mental illnesses that prevent him from making voluntary statements. They literally are, first of all. Those can absolutely be serious mental illnesses. I imagine she would still say this after seeing the incel videos. You're right, Nicole. And she did, because on his pre-sentencing or post-sentencing or whatever paperwork, where it says, does you're not a defendant anymore. What are you, an inmate? Does inmate or whatever suffer from any serious mental health diagnoses or conditions? What did Gull write? She wrote no. Psychosis induced by stressors pertaining to confinement is a direct quote from that raggedy ass dumpster woman, aka Walla, right? Yeah. All we want to know, Fran, is, do you sleep at night? Do you? How? How do you sleep at night? Garbage humans, a lot of them. I like this. Wait, where is it? I am so angry that I can taste metal. Man, I feel that. I have felt that many a time. Pretty much every time we talk about Dr. Walla. He didn't even know that he confessed. How could anyone write this after sitting through that? Oh, but Shane Meehan is not fit for trial. Got it. He was on 2 or 3 different doses of Haldol, 2 scheduled injections, and an oral sometimes 2. You are absolutely right, Nicole. To quote our boy Reese, can you sleep at night? Can you really? The court finds the statements given by the defendant to Dr. Walla, the warden, inmates, guards, medical personnel, mental health professionals, and law enforcement personnel were not coerced. They were voluntary. They weren't the result of interrogation by the state or its actors, nor the product of his confinement, and therefore denies the defendant's motion to suppress, filed April 11th. Okay, now this is just a blah, 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 blah. Dr. Monica is the lead psychologist overseeing and administering Rick Allen's mental health care and treatment. Dr. Wall's testimony and cross-examination gave the public a rare glimpse behind the heavily protected walls of DOC. A place so isolated and so physically and psychologically damaging to those held there that a multitude of civil rights lawsuits and human rights organizations have mandated that the Department of Corrections implement policies limiting the solitary confinement of seriously mentally ill prisoners to no more than 30 days. No more. There are numerous claims in Judge Gull's order that run so contrary to the hours of sworn testimony directly from the mouth of Dr. Walla that one has to wonder if the special judge was even listening or if she was even present. So here's what Dr. Walla testified to in painstaking, devastating detail about the months of observation and the hours of time that she spent with Richard Allen within Westville Correctional Facilities, RHU. So just a refresher, Dr. Walla is technically employed by Centurion. It's my white whale. A private healthcare company that operates government-sponsored behavioral and medical health services in prison systems. As of 2018, Centurion provided services to 300 prisons, jails, and youth detention centers, incarcerating over 330,000 individuals across 16 states. Dr. Walla testified that round reports are made approximately every day. The original notes that make up those reports, which she agreed are the best record of what was observed and what occurred during the rounds, are shredded. Richard Allen proclaimed his innocence at the beginning, but was focused on his wife, and he worried about her. In December 2022, Richard Allen first confided in Dr. Walla that he was being mistreated at Westville Correctional Facility. Hi, Mandy. Shut up, Dee. The thing about white whales is that it implies that it's rare. No, it implies that I'm Captain Ahab and my white whale is my Moby Dick is my Dr. Walla. Dr. Walla is my Moby Dick, and I do have a collection of Moby Dicks. Sure hope someone has reported Walla to her licensing board. Hi, True Crime Addicted. Thank you so much for the super chat. Super chat. Thank you. Have all the cranks say thank you, True Crime Addicted. No prefix for her. Didn't she change her mind about shredding? She changed her mind about a lot of things, and she is also just a dick. You're right, Grace Face. So we have Yellow Jackets clinical notes here. Yellow Jackets clinical notes from all of my therapy with Yellow Jacket. No, Yellow Jackets notes from the hearing that outline Dr. Wall's clinical notes. So this is very, very interesting to me. And this has all kind of things are becoming very clear. So in March 2023, Richard Allen first expressed to Dr. Wall in the beginning of March, quote, "I don't feel right." So this to me is significant because this to me indicates a change in Rick. He was depressed from the moment he got to Westville, right? We know that. Who wouldn't be, given his circumstances and his history? Oh, because of the colors? Yes. Thank you. Yep. But this to me indicates that Rick felt different and worse than his baseline of just terribly depressed, right? I don't feel right. Something's wrong. I feel like something's going on. The emergence of psychosis, my friends. So I got 8,000 tabs open as if I'm DB, but we're going to pull up. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's go back to December, shall we? December 2022, Rick Allen confides to Dr. Walla. He says that he feels psychologically abused in ways that he shouldn't be while he's incarcerated. He says he feels that the investigators want him to take blame for the murders. He proclaims his innocence. He says he's not involved. Justice will prevail. I feel psychologically abused in ways I shouldn't be here. December 2022, early December 2022, he felt psychologically abused. Interesting. But don't worry, Dr. Wall was working with him on patience, tolerance, and endurance. And she says, you know, it's normal to feel some paranoia while you're in prison. December 2022. Isn't that interesting? He says, I feel like I'm being psychologically abused here, and I feel like they want me to confess to something I didn't do. And Dr. Wallace says, well, don't worry, Rick. It's normal to feel paranoid while you're in prison. You're just paranoid. Okay. This hurts my heart. He knew what was happening. He couldn't stop it. No one could in that situation. 100%. 100%. Oh, this is a great question, Post-Punk. Wait, investigators? Who's talking to him without his attorneys? Oh, we're going to get to that. Again, December 2022. Rick is struggling with limited contact. He's unaware of what's going on with his case, but he seems optimistic. Dr. Walla is including conversations that she's having with Rick. She's talking to him about his case, y'all, in December. So we've got a problem here. Dr. Walla also notes that in early January 2023, so Dr. Walla is abreast of Rick Allen's court proceedings and his pre-trial proceedings and the happenings of his case. That's a problem. We're going to get back to that in a second. So Dr. Walla will bring up to Rick, like, oh, so, you have a hearing next week. You have court next week. Why do you know that, Dr. Waller? You're not supposed to know that. Why are you talking to him about his case? And also, why do you know? Rick is also saying things like, he had fears about his case. He had fears about his trial, and he was worried that factors other than the truth might impact the outcome of his trial and his case. Factors other than the truth. That's a lot of awareness. In February 2023, Dr. Waller meets with Rick again. Rick expresses fears that if and when he's exonerated, the actual killers will come after him. These are fears he's having while he's incarcerated, right? He's talking to he's expressing fears to Dr. Waller about how he knows that he basically knows that he's being fucked with psychologically. He knows that they want him to confess. He knows that there's no evidence, but that factors other than the truth might impact the outcome of his case. Rick also expresses feelings of, so we've seen and read in motions and heard from trial testimony, and actually in the interrogation with Rick and Holman going to talk to Kathy. Rick has history of suicidal ideation with his depression, but was not suicidal when he arrived at Westville. He did not endorse suicidality at all, and they put him on suicide watch immediately. He has more discernment while drugged and abused than all those involved in the investigation, 100%. So much awareness of the fuckery afoot. He was in a hellscape. He is very astute in these fucked up situations. Yes. And I think that can you imagine knowing what they're doing to you? It's very sad. We're just getting started. What else? Trying to find. So another thing that's not true, Dr. Walla stated that she saw Rick every week up until like April, and then she saw him every day. There's no indication, and Dr. Westcott even said during her testimony when she was being cross-examined by Stacey Diener, she's like, I don't see any evidence or any proof that yes, this is true. So when Rick went into custody, he was taking a couple different heart and blood pressure medications. He was taking I think he was on Prozac or an SSRI, and he was also taking Seroquel, which is an antipsychotic, which is prescribed a lot of times for bipolar depression, sometimes for sleep, a lot of things. Seroquel is a medication that if you stop it abruptly, actually a lot of these psychotropic medications you should not at all ever stop abruptly. And they did not approve his Seroquel when he got there. That was nice of them. It was really nice of them. Best case scenario, Rick says, is that I'm found innocent and I get to go home. he expressed that he was an innocent man being treated like a guilty convict. Interesting. This is very true. It's very true. This is very true. Justice will prevail, but he's being psychologically abused in ways he shouldn't be. But he wasn't willing to discuss this further. Dr. Walla was like, what do you mean, Rick? Tell me how you're being psychologically abused. I don't believe that Rick trusted Dr. Walla, probably for good reason. Rick has, as we've seen, is a person who's quite astute, has great discernment, and really only trusts his family, right? The next time, let's see. Rick was pacing so much in his solitary confinement cell that the soles of his shoes were falling apart in January 2023. 2023. January 2023. He's been there for 2 months. I agree with this. Rick is smart. He knows what's going on. No way he trusted her. Walla and everyone else were de facto investigators. The legal system is a method by which we ignore the obvious. Rick is smart. Yeah. Soles of his shoes were falling apart. But he didn't want to request new shoes because he wanted to wait and see, because he was hopeful that he'd be moving facilities in January. Remember what Dr. Wallace said at one of the hearings? Yellow Jacket brought this up the other day to me. Walla literally says, here it is. Admin was going to keep him there no matter what. No matter what. It didn't matter. Didn't matter. Are there any records that he was suicidal at intake? No, but he was at high risk for suicidality due to the charges he was coming in with. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. But admin was going to keep him there no matter what, in that cell with the camera and the 24-hour surveillance and the suicide restrictions. Did you order companions? Asked Mr. Rosie. No, nothing at all. Lie. Liar. Dr. Walla did order his companions. I'm sorry. Dr. Walla was the one who got to decide if and when he came off suicide watch. The companions were placed at his door from the very day that he arrived at Westville Correctional Facility. How do we know that? Because the suicide companion logs say what he's doing every 15 minutes, 15 minutes on the 15 minutes for as long as he's there. They're watching him. That started immediately. I had a therapist that was doing research on DNA and prescription compatibility, using your DNA as a blueprint for which meds will or won't work for you. Is there any legitimate? Yes. Yeah. There's all kinds of blood tests now that can be offered. Like if somebody has, this is just a side note, by the way, if you have like medication resistant depression or medication resistant mental health conditions, or you have, had like serotonin syndrome or like a really bad side effect or adverse reaction to a medication, but you want to treat your condition with a medication, they're like gene site tests they can do where they basically, they can tell how effective or like whether or not medication is going to be likely to. It's a great way to kind of get a jump start or like get ahead on finding a medication or a cocktail of medications that works for you without having to go through like the process of like trying things that are really, post-punk says, I've taken that test. I just had it done. It's fascinating for sure. This is true. Serotonin syndrome is very scary. My friend got the magnetic brain banks for treatment-resistant depression. TMS. TMS is amazing. There's all kinds of things. Yes, and then you can send it to a lab and they'll store your DNA and give it to the FBI. Thanks, Steve. Yeah. Cool. It makes me feel helpless. Yeah, it is very helpless feeling. Yep. Yeah, he fears that factors outside of the truth could impact the outcome. Well, he was right. Rick denied suicidal intent, denied suicidal plan, and said, besides, hurting, killing myself out of anger, like they would just see that as like they win. They would just interpret that as like that I did something. Like the resilience of this man. Maybe it is a swab. It might be a swab. This is also true. Yeah, so it's interesting. So Dr. Walla meets with Rick on the 9th. Dr. Walla meets with Rick on the 13th of February. There was something else that was going on the 13th of February. Does anyone remember? Let's look. All of the fears that Rick had when he was talking to Holman came true. There's a reason for that. I can only imagine how absolutely horrible he must have felt knowing what they were doing to him and even saying it to Walla. Yep. Absolutely. So awful. So if we go back to 2023, February. So Dr. Walla actually starts paying a lot more attention to Rick in the end of January, the beginning of February 2023, which is interesting. So we got the change of venue issue worked out. We've got the defense files their motion for discovery, Rule 404, 405 evidence. The state responds. Things are starting to get kind of like snarky between the defense and the state in motions. Change of venue, end of January, beginning of, okay. This is where things really start to fall apart for Rick, unfortunately. The defense files a request, a motion. Fucker. God damn it. Shit. Fuck. Hold on. When did they file their motion for bail? Why can't I find this stupid thing? Maybe they didn't file it publicly. I'm pretty sure they did. Okay, well, whatever. I can't find it. But at the very least, we have the state's response to that. So now comes the state of Indiana. Files its response to the defendant's petition to let bail, asks the courts to deny it. The charges were filed against Richard Allen on October 28, 2022. At the initial hearing, the state of Indiana asked the defendant be held without bail, and the court ordered that the defendant be held without bail, without bond. The defendant filed a petition to let bail on November 21st. Oh, okay. Let me see. Oh, that was a while ago. Why does it take them so long to do everything in Rick's case? It's insane. 21st. Here it is. Nope, still can't find it. What the fuck? Oh, sorry. God. Share this tab. Comes now the accused by counsel. Respectfully moves the court to conduct a hearing and then release the accused on his own recognizance or in the alternative to set a reasonable bail. In support of this petition, the accused alleged avers the following. Richard Allen was arrested and charged with murder on October 28, 2022. The defense has received and reviewed the probable cause affidavit that as the time of this filing has been sealed. Because neither the proof of guilt is evident nor the presumption of guilt strong, the accused is seeking a hearing to release the accused on his own recognizance or in the alternative to set a reasonable bail. All they had at this point, remember, all the defense had at that point was that trash weak PCA. And they were like, yeah, we want a hearing. We want a bail hearing. So the state responds, per the local rules, the defendant's presumed to be held without bond. That's so funny that Nick cites the local rules, but then he goes and violates the local rules. The state believes there is competent evidence that the court can rely on and from which the court can make its own independent determination that the admissible evidence against the accused adds up to strong and evident proof of guilt. Word salad, word salad, word salad, word salad. The state believes the evidence shows culpability of the actual crime for murder. The state believes the evidence shows by a preponderance of the evidence the defendant committed the crime of murder. Oh, a preponderance? Got it. Okay, so that's their objection, right? So the defense is like, we want a bail hearing. And the state's like, no. And then everything gets unsealed, right? The PCA gets unsealed. December comes. Motion for leave, ex parte motion, which is granted by the judge. You can, proceed with ex parte motions and hearings for funding, etc. And then the what's it called? Nick obviously violates that. I promise this is relevant. Then the defense starts requesting discovery. Huh. Judge Gull sets a hearing for January 13th, 2023. Interesting. Where her shit. Fuck. I keep losing my tabbies. I got too many tabs open. I don't know how DB does this. Motherfucker. Here it is. January 13th. Let's see if there's any Walla Rick Allen meetings. Sorry, Fiend. On January 13th. Let's just see. Let's just do a look-see-loo just in case. Nope. Nothing on January 13th, I don't think. Okay. So this is weird. Oh, wait, there was a hearing held. Did Rick go to court for this hearing? Does anyone remember if Rick went on the 13th of January? Like, there was a pretrial. Yes, right? I don't remember, y'all. January was a long time ago. Okay, change of venue. I believe that they did. Yeah, they did. Okay. Verified motion, change of venue, blah, 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 blah. Confidential order. Petition to let bail, motion to continue. Okay, this is interesting. So, defendant's motion to continue bail hearing and jury trial setting, filed February 7th. Comes now, defendant. Defendant filed his petition to let bail. It's scheduled for February 17th. The defense has yet to receive discovery from the state. The state is not handing over discovery. This is on the 17th of February, 2023. They're supposed to have this hearing. And on the 7th of February, 2023, they still don't fucking have any discovery. Zero. They're supposed to put on a bail let hearing with no discovery. Now, I would Monday morning tight end, Monday morning field, Monday morning football say that they should have fucking had the bail let hearing. Because guess what? You have a bail let hearing and you don't have any discovery. That means there's no evidence. That means where's your fucking case? Like, you should have had a bail let hearing, even though you didn't have discovery from the state. All the more reason that you should have had a bail let hearing. But they didn't. I guess we're giving the state the benefit of the doubt. Respectfully request that the bail hearing, okay, this is really hopeful. The defense anticipates receiving the remaining discovery by the end of the week. Okay. Okay, y'all. That's amazing. Sure. Counsel believes the volume of discovery is such that there will not be adequate time to review it in preparation for the bail hearing. Okay. We want to continue it, reschedule it. We know that the trial is scheduled for March, but the exchange and review of discovery as referenced above will necessitate that the jury trial be lifted and reset on a date and time convenient for all parties. Why are we delaying trial and hearings based on the state's failure to turn over discovery? Why? That's the point of a bail hearing, a ballot hearing, or a ballot hearing. They let Nick talk him out of it. Right. They should have just had their hearing and they should have moved forward with trial despite not having the discovery, because that's the state's problem. Or at least they should have held their feet to the fire, but whatever. Defendant Allen requests that both the bail hearing and the jury dates be lifted and reset on dates that are convenient for the court and the parties. How adorable. Okay. So that was filed on the 7th of February. Let's see what Wall is doing to poor Ricky. Oh, Walla asks Rick, how was your court hearing? Or how do you feel about your court hearing that's coming up? This is the first week of February. Walla asks Rick directly about his case. And then she notes that Rick became irritable when asked about his case. How was your hearing, Rick? How was it? Or how is it? How do you feel about your upcoming hearing? Rick became irritable when asked about that. Did he, Dr. Walla, psychologist, who he obviously doesn't trust because you're creepy and invasive and you're asking him about his case? Interesting. Thank you, Monday morning quarterback. How are you hearing? He also says, I'm just a piece of a game. I'm a piece of a game. He says he's frustrated. I'm a piece of a game. He's probably like, can you get the frig off, you weirdo? Leave him alone, Monica. He recognizes that he's a game. What are you, a cop? Rick probably. Right. Exactly. Oh, shit. Walla asks him again. She sees him 4 days later. She saw him on the 9th of February, 2023, and then she saw him on the 13th of February, 2023. Why did she see him so, frequently in February? That's weird. Dr. Walla again asks him about his next court date and how he feels about it. Again asks him about his upcoming hearing. He's struggling a lot in February 2023, being away from his family. Number one thing is my wife, my family, my wife, my family, my wife, my family, my wife, my family. My wife and my family, my wife and my family. It's becoming harder. He's struggling being away from his wife and his family. He only speaks when prompted and provides short responses. He doesn't want to talk to you, you weird lady. Now, okay, I'm going to wait to talk. I don't know what this is, but there was an interaction that occurred at the end of January that resulted in Rick limiting how much he chose to share. And I don't know what that was, but we're going to find out. But there was an interaction that occurred with custody staff in January 2023, resulting in Rick began to limit how much he chose to share, when in the past he had previously discussed things at length. I don't know what that was, but something happened. The beginning of March 2023 is when Rick starts to tell her, I don't feel right. I'm not feeling right. I don't feel right. However, leading up to this, he was trying to keep busy, right? He's eating, he's trying to read, he's talking to his wife. March 16th, 2023. In-person visits are discussed. Wow, Dr. Wall informed him that, oh my God. Okay, I'm gonna, oh my God. I forgot about this. How do I copy this? Motherfucker. Oh my God, why can't I do this? There we go. So on 3/16/2023, Rick and Dr. Walla discussed potential in-person visits with his wife. Dr. Walla then tells Rick that, oh, there's no records of routine communication between you and your wife. The lead investigator said it's possible they may not have had access to the communication. Did y'all just hear what I said? Do you need me to repeat that? Dr. Walla informed him that she had learned that there were no records of routine communication between Mr. Allen and his wife. Although the lead investigator said it was possible that they may not have had correct access to the communication. This is in March 2023. Why is Dr. Walla communicating with the lead investigator? Well, actually, let me ask another question first. Who is the lead investigator in the case against Richard Allen? Number one, why is she talking to the lead investigator? Number two, what does that have to do with visits? Dr. Wallace says, hey, Rick, let's talk about getting in-person visits from your wife. Let's dangle your wife in front of you. By the way, the lead investigator says that they don't see any regular communication between you and Kathy, although maybe they don't have the correct access to your calls. So maybe you should start calling your wife more or something. What's that about, Rick? I wonder what that's about. Dr. Walla and Jerry Holman. Jojo gifted 5 memberships. Thank you. Thank you, Jojo. Who got it? Who got fog revealed? Who got? Jerry just helps out around the prison in his free time. Big Jaron Wallace sitting in a tree in the control room. Is she talking about Mullen? You mentioned he was all over this shit. Could be Mullen. I have a feeling it was Holman, but it could have been Mullen for sure. What I've noticed about Holman is that while he's literally embroiled in everything fucked up, he makes a point to have other people do his dirty work for him so that he's always kind of at a distance. Like Holman's name didn't even come up in the case pre-trial until the Franks memo, till they deposed him. He had successfully stayed off the radar. They are torturing him. Who gives a shit what Holman knows and doesn't know? Let Rick have a visit with his wife. Yep, they want him using his tablet. Mullen and Tony said they went to visit Rick, but then, oops, yeah, we never saw him. Yeah, and they were never able to actually interview him. They're not getting him to talk, so they did a deceit. Buttholman. Yay. Jerry Holman's case. After Wallace said that to him, she was like, yeah, let's talk about your visits. Let's talk about your visits with your wife. By the way, the lead investigator says you're not calling. He doesn't have a record of your regular communications. What's that about? Rick became agitated. Rick became agitated and said, I don't even want it anymore. Now, is that his tablet? Do we think that's his tablet? I don't even want it anymore. He became agitated. He said, he indicated feeling like he was being purposefully targeted by staff, purposefully targeted by investigators, and became agitated over this perceived injustice. Dr. Walla calls it a perceived injustice. A perceived injustice. It's just his perception. I agree with this too. Yeah, he feels like there's a perceived injustice. And then it says, okay, so what was that, 13th or the 8th or something of March? Mr. Allen has a phone call with Mrs. Allen, in which they discuss visitation later in March. Phone call with Mrs. Allen, phone call with Mrs. Allen, phone call with Mrs. Allen. Interesting. Okay. So that's the end of March, y'all, right? Or no, that's the beginning of March. Beginning of March. We already decided that there's a lot going on in the case at this time. So how do you feel about your case, Rick? How do you feel about your upcoming hearing? How do you feel about it? How do you feel about it? This is also when Nick is like pooping his pants about the upcoming deadline, the discovery deadline. Does everyone remember when he goes before the council, right? Nick goes before council and he's asking for money and it's like, if I don't get $10,000 and if I don't get an entire investigator, I'm not going to be able to successfully prosecute this case. So what we need to find out and what we're working on trying to go through everybody's notes is Brian Harshman was involved through the ISP and U.S. Marshals. Like he was involved in the case. He was always like, how you doing? You need any help? You need any help? You need any help? And that's a good question too. I don't put anything past them. I guarantee you that they were fucking with him via his tablet. And he also knew it. I don't know why Rick broke his tablet, but you know who was really pissed about Rick breaking his tablet? Do we remember how many times did we hear about Rick broke his tablet? Rick broke his tablet. He broke his tablet. They were pissed that Rick broke his tablet. He broke his tablet at the beginning of April when he was psychotic. And there were instances where he talks to his dad at 3 a.m. on April 3rd and says that he feels like he's being like he's losing his mind and that something's wrong. Something's really wrong. Something's really, really wrong. There's something really wrong here. That's like 3 a.m. on the 3rd. And then like at 5 a.m, he talks to his mom and he has no memory of talking to his dad 2 hours ago. But he's all over the place. And then the next call a couple hours later is the one to Kathy where he says, I think I did it. And Kathy's like, what are you talking about? That was the first confession. Yeah. So I wonder why they were so upset at Rick for breaking his tablet. What do they care? They don't, I mean, it's not like, what is it, a $200 tablet? They were really mad that he did that. Well, if I'm psychotic and I'm coming in and out of like lucidity and I feel like I'm losing my mind and I don't remember, I know that I'm having these phone calls, but I don't remember them. And then I'm being told that I'm saying things that I have no memory of. And I'm being told that I'm doing things and I'm being told that I'm like calling and saying things. Maybe in a moment of like clarity, briefly, I might break my tablet because I don't want it. I don't want it anymore. I don't even want that. This is true. Yeah, the reason they wanted Rick to have it was because It's the mechanism through which they torment him, and it's the mechanism through which they acquire confessions from him. Yeah, but we're being so kind and generous offering you a free replacement tablet. Yep. No, it's not insane, Nicole. I believe that they were somehow communicating with or tormenting him through his tablet. Because at this exact time, do you know what, yeah, no tablet? Oh, it's okay, Rick. I'll dial the phone for you if you can't communicate with your wife on your own. I'll dial it for you. And I'll use the handheld portable phone that goes around the cell like once a week. That's not GTL run, but it's DOC run. Because that way we don't have to subpoena GTL. We can just get the records directly from the prison, whatever happens on this phone. It's part of their playbook. The Monticello police chief held a murder suspect in solitary confinement to punish him, and the suspect was never even told what the charge was for. They just did it. And then I'll transcribe it for you. Yep. Yeah, that's not insane at all. Do we remember what was going on around this time? This exact time? Actually, here, let's do this. This is what I was looking for. So ready? This is better. I should have just done this. All right. December. Sergeant Randy Jones is assigned to the Westville Correctional Unit. B-Pod. Rick's an A. But Randy Jones gets moved over. Randy Jones is Mr. Odin Face. Remember? But at January, the defense begins to notice that Rick is deteriorating. The defense is working to move him out of DOC at this time, which is probably why Rick is saying, my shoes are literally falling apart because I am pacing in my dog cage so much. But I want to wait and see if I get moved before I request new shoes because I might be getting out of this place soon. The defense is trying really hard at this point to get Rick moved out of DOC and put into Cass County. And at this point, the McClellan actually doesn't object. Somebody does, though. The 8th, oh my God. Nick says, I'm treading water. We're drowning. We're working with a skeleton crew. A very, 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 very time-sensitive work did I have to do. A discovery deadline is coming up on the 10th. Late February, early March, Sergeant Randy Jones is then made acting supervisor of A-Pod, where Alan is being housed. Late February, early March, which is literally when everything's falling apart. Early March. Alan begins to read, okay. So in early March 2023, Mr. Allen begins to read the Bible, which is a new behavior for him because when he was booked into DOC, Westville, whatever, when he was booked into Westville, his religious affiliation was just none, right? No religious affiliation. But at some point, if anyone remembers the exact date, let me know. Early April, somebody changed Rick Allen's religious affiliation to Christian, which is weird. In early March, Mr. Allen begins to read the Bible, which is a new behavior for him. So, is there anything like necessarily like suspicious about the 3rd or 4th of April? Oh, so the exact day that his psychotic symptoms really he cracks. He cracks. I believe it was the 3rd or 4th. So this is another interesting thing. I know I'm jumping around a lot, but I promise it's relevant because what we're seeing is a coordinated, pre-planned, coordinated efforts to solicit confessions from Rick. You can't, yeah. So the reason I think they switched his religious affiliation to Christian was because they needed, well, because they knew that he was psychotic and they knew that his religious delusions were delusions. What's going to happen if, you know, the defense tries to, or like, it's a lot harder to prove that these are not delusions if he came in an atheist and all of a sudden he's a born again Christian while he's been in solitary. It's not like he was like evangelized to, right? He comes in an atheist or he comes in without any religious affiliation and all of a sudden he's a fanatic overnight. That's a delusion. That's a symptom of psychosis. So how about this? We'll change his religious affiliation to Christian so that it looks like he was a Christian when he came in, so that this is not a drastic change in behavior. This is something that he's always, you know, he's always been religious. That is knowing and intentional and what is the legal word? I don't know the legal word, but like that to me indicates that they knew what they were doing. Whatever the fucking word is. I don't know. I took a Benadryl. What's the word? They knew what they were doing. Consciousness of guilt. They knew that that was a symptom. Yeah, it was a deliberate and it was premeditated. Thank you, Kat. Consciousness of guilt. Mens rea. Thank you. These are all the correct answers. So somebody changed his religious affiliation in the system. Who had access to it? Who had access to that system? Who has access to like his biometrics or whatever the fuck? I don't know, but it would be an important thing. Rosie actually asks about this too. Malice. Yep. During the hearings. And it's always like, I don't know. Dr. Walla. Dr. Walla. So he begins reading the Bible in early March. March 16th is when Dr. Wall is like, hey, by the way, the lead investigator doesn't have a regular record, what's it called? A record of routine communication between you and your family. What's that about? And Rick's like, I don't know. I'm being targeted by staff and investigators. He became agitated over this perceived injustice. But don't worry, Dr. Walla adds, he felt that Dr. Walla was the only one who helped him. Yeah? Is that so? I don't fucking buy it. I don't think so. I think Dr. Walla thought that she's Clarice. Yep. Interesting. He literally never said that. No. Bullshit. Dr. Walla does this a lot, by the way. She does this a lot. She thinks she's very important. And this is not the first case that Dr. Walla, this is not the first example of Dr. Walla doing this at all, in fact. In fact, oh, geez, there's another case that Dr. Walla was named as a defendant in. I think it was the Robertson case. Dr. Walla had to write an affidavit. This is a little bit unrelated, but just, you know, Dr. Walla had to write an affidavit as to why basically she didn't do anything wrong in the defendant's claims of basically 8th and 14th Amendment. Isn't that cruel and unusual and deprivation of, it's like cruel and unusual punishment. I don't know what it is, amendment, but it's basically like you cannot deprive anybody, not even an inmate, of medical or mental health treatment. You just can't. That's cruel and unusual. Walla says, I saw the plaintiff. This is not Rick. This is another case. Sidebar. Walla says, I saw the patient June 18th for a 4-week post-suicide watch follow-up. He didn't endorse any suicidal ideation, but he inquired about receiving 10 hours of weekly treatment he believed he was required under DOC. By the way, it is. Remember that iPass settlement that we talked about, that Indiana, what is it called? Protection Advocacy Services. It's basically like kind of like the ACLU. They class action sued DOC for torturing basically and violating the rights and the constitutional protections and the 8th and 14th Amendment and everything. So this plaintiff believes that he's entitled to 10 hours of treatment, which he is. He described how he did not wish to remain in restricted housing, but appeared optimistic, saying he was capable of enduring it. I encouraged him, this is solitary confinement, y'all, another case of solitary confinement. I encouraged plaintiff to refrain from activity that would result in a conduct violation. He appeared to be managing relatively well at Westville. He then made comments about needing to communicate with women and inquired about my marital status after he made a comment about my status as a potential trophy. Trophy? That's a weird word. I informed him his comments were inappropriate and the session was terminated. Maybe. Maybe that happened. Or maybe Dr. Walla has a pattern of behavior. Maybe, yes. She is literally fucking Hannibal Lecter. Okay. Back to this. March 20th. Nick is freaking out. I can't prosecute this case. Yep, Judge, I agree with this. Nick McClelland pleads for additional funding or else I can't successfully prosecute this case. And that's when that Tracy woman on the council goes, did you really say that, Nick? Did you really just fucking say that? $10,000, huh? Or else this case is not going to go anywhere? But here we have it. March 21st, 2023. Per Dr. Walla testimony and Harshman testimony, Rick took God into his heart. Rick took God into his heart. So the fact that both Dr. Walla and Harshman are able to point to this day as significant, where like there's a switch in Rick, leads me to believe that it was noticeable and drastic, i.e., that's a very common symptom of psychosis. I love all you cranks that be cranking away until Rick comes home. Hashtag Willy Wallow wanted. Hashtag I don't know what that means. Hashtag freeway. Bell ma'am, I love you. Thank you so much. That's very sweet. Hashtag I don't know what that means should be the slogan of this channel. We love you, Belle. She's probably crushing on Randy Jones and his Odin Sphere. Probably. Let's see. Per Walla testimony. Let's see. I hate this article. I hate the comment, but here we go. This is just a recap from the comment. Alan was on suicide watch from the time he arrived until December, and then from early April. But he was held in solitary confinement the whole time. So even when he's off suicide watch, they're still utilizing people at his door, suicide companions, and he's still in solitary. So suicide watch meant nothing. It was just like a box that they checked, but they still treated him exactly the same. Yeah. It's giving hyper religiosity. Why did he have suicide companions? Great question. Yep. Alan returned to suicide watch after exhibiting bizarre behavior, running from one side of the cell to the other and smashing his head into the door, resulting in bruising to his face. And the bruising was really bad. He had to be seen by medical more than once because he had 24/7 observation, yet the people watching him sat back and let him self-injure while psychotic and bang his head into his door, so much so they didn't intervene. They allowed it to happen to the point where he had to go be seen by medical because his face was tore the fuck up. And by the way, being a suicide companion, it's a paid job. You earn time cuts and you get to live in your housing is different. You get to live somewhere else. They did. Remember, they're saying to him around the time he breaks his tablet, around the time he starts to really confess and lose his mind, like April 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, the hell days. That's when Baston also says, and Rick says this too to Walla at one point, they're screaming at me that I'm a child killer. They're screaming at me that I should kill myself. They're screaming at me that I did this, blah, blah, blah. They're also taunting him saying, Your tablet's ringing, your tablet's ringing, your tablet's ringing. Your wife is calling you. Hey, you have a visit from your wife. Your wife is here. Your wife is here. Screaming. Constant, 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 constant. Walla testified she was present for at least one. How many then? I hate when they do this shit. You know they're lying when they do this. Mr. Allen made no less than 5 incriminating statements, says Nick McClellan. No less than 61 confessions. I was present for at least one of them. Then how many? 2? At least 1? Okay, so was it 1? Was it 2? Was it 12? How many? Over the course of 2 months while being held at Westfield, the alleged confessions were recorded through video observation of Allen, phone conversations with family, or through door sheets maintained by suicide companions watching over him. There's a reason for that, Judgy. You know why. Wallace said Rick was on constant observation. There's a camera in his cell, and then anytime he traveled to recreation, for medical services, or to meet with his psychologist, he was accompanied by 2 officers and a third who was video camera recording his movements. This came up at the hearing over the summer, too. Did you know that, oh, Judgy, don't worry, the door sheets didn't make it into trial, but they did make it into Walla's notes. She included door sheets in her notes as if they were her own observations and her own, like as if they came from her. So they made it, don't worry. Rick's meetings with his doctors and his psychologist were recorded by the handheld camera and given to Brian Harshman and Jerry Holman. Did everybody hear what I just said? His meetings with Dr. Walla and with medical, I mean, of course they were. How else would Weircat and here Fiend have seen a video of Rick catatonic with Dr. Martin? Obviously, because they're recording his medical and his psych appointments. She said Allen appeared to be selfless and wanted to make sure his wife was okay. And then on March 21st, Allen took God into his heart. On one occasion, he asked to call his wife to confess and asked Walla to stay in the room. Before Allen's wife abruptly hung up, she told him to stop talking. John Gallup, who said that Allen wrote him saying he wanted to confess. Well, that's okay. We have that actual, you remember that, whatchamacallit? Rafael Sanchez, is that his name? Rafael Sanchez made the, he copied it. You know what I'm saying? There was audio. So the reason that they're following him everywhere, and also the reason that they're moving Rick so much is because the handheld camera has audio. But wait a second, didn't they say that the recording Rick and his attorneys, there was no audio? Yeah, they did. That's the same camera that they use to film his movements that has audio. FYI. They lied and 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 they lied. I'm going to pull something up, but it's going to take me a minute because it's large. He had to redact the audio. Yes, he had to redact the audio from the handheld camera. The incel video does not have audio, so we're told. But I have a lot of questions about that. I still believe that they could hear him maybe through his tablet, maybe through something else, but they didn't really need the audio from his cell because they had somebody at his door 24/7. So once he started to confess, all they would have to do is take him to get a haircut, take him to get a shower, just march him down the hall, really, because then they'd have it on camera. Oh, he's confessing? Okay, let's get the camera. Confessing. He's psychotic. March him down the hall. Because that's exactly what they did. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh no. Or nor. Why can't I find what I'm looking for? Thank you for being patient with me, everybody. This is not as organized as I wanted it to be, but that's okay. Here it is. Whoop. Shit. Fuck. Isn't it also interesting that, I don't know if y'all remember this, but the warden testified that he had at least one confession from Rick, maybe two, but I definitely remember one. Okay, well, you had one confession. It was a handwritten note that Rafael Sanchez tried to like copy, which, by the way, he did a good job. I'll give him that. He did a pretty good job. Here's the actual letter. Hey, Michael. So what's interesting is that this letter says received 3/5/2023 at 11:47, signed Gallipu. That's a lie. Gallipu lied. It was received April 3rd. April 3rd. So here's another question. Why would the warden be invested in backdating or misdating this confession from Rick? Why would he want to make it March instead of April? Is it because they have spent the majority of their time arguing that the psychosis was time limited and that the confessions started before and after his period of psychosis? Oh yeah, they needed his psychosis to be short and the confessions to have existed before and after. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. And it's not true. But here he is. Here's Rick's very competent, very intelligent letter that we've seen a million times from back in November, or yeah, like the end of October 2022. Here it is. Lucid. Everything is spelled and it's just like grammar's great. Yeah, this was how the warden justified the date being incorrect. Well, I wrote the date on there, so I know I definitely would have written the right date. So maybe he wrote me 2 letters. No, Lizard Man. And then here is his April 3rd, which April 3rd was the longest day of Rick Allen's life, I imagine, or at least it certainly seems that way. They got a lot out of him, April 3rd. I am ready to officially confess killing Abby and Libby. I hope I get the opportunity to tell the families I'm sorry. Interesting. Remember when Raphael did the drawing and some dude replied with a shitty kid's drawing with bullet sticks? Yes, I do. This is some bullshit. It sure is. All right, let's go back to It says not to write below the line, Rick. Okay. Yes. You're right. Shortly before March 24th, the defense went and visited Rick, I believe on the 24th is when the defense visited him, and they said that they gave him optimistic news. He was polite, he was inquisitive, but they noticed his deteriorating condition, okay, March 24th. So this is 3 days after he makes his religious, has his religious epiphany. They also deliver nearly 1,000 pages of police reports and other discovery, right? Soon after this date, investigators are made aware by the warden that Rick is acting strangely. Sometime between March and April, Randy Jones begins wearing patches on his uniform, Odin patches. Around the same time, in April, Jerry Harshman, the corrections officer, we've talked about him a little bit. There really is a special place in hell for people who participated in doing this to Rick. Yep. April 1st, Rick is placed on suicide watch again. By April 3rd, the defense documents have still not been provided to Rick. But April 3rd is when this alleged phone call happens. And I think I have the actual time, so hold on. Videos from this time, April, we don't have, I don't know the dates. I'm sure that the dates are in the exhibits that we don't have. But videos show officers speaking to Rick about why he's refusing meals. Rick just stares blankly. In another video, Rick was taken to recreation. He appears to be confused. He needed multiple repetitions and instructions. He initially responded yes when he was asked about rec, but then he appeared confused and asked where he was going and what rec yard meant. The officer inquired multiple times if Mr. Allen wanted a shower. He stared blankly. Rick is pointing at the camera and pointing at the ceiling in his cell and not saying anything. He's pointing. He's pointing. Staring blankly. Screaming things, screaming, hold up, screaming, Dad, screaming things like Roger, wait for it, Marvin. Robert Baston writes his letter around this time. Inmate letter. Mr. Allen's being abused and mistreated in restrictive housing by corrupt officers calling him a kid killer, teasing him that he has a visit from his family. Some inmates were also threatening to kill Mr. Allen and told him to kill himself. They made comments like this in front of the warden and the officers, and he alleged that neither he nor Mr. Allen were provided mental health treatment. Suicide companions are taking notes at his door. On April 3rd. Wait, hold on. By the way, Rick didn't sleep from April 2nd until Rick was awake for 8 days. How do we know that? We know that because the companions are documenting his movement every 15 minutes, and he's awake for almost 8 days. Did y'all hear me? Rick started to act strange. He asked how long he had been there. He was told 6 months. He immediately started pacing. His companion let the officers know what was going on, and they told him it was nothing to worry about. Mr. Allen asked if apologizing would make things better, and he was sorry. Mr. Allen asked if apologizing would make things better. Continue to pace around. Satan, he was talking about Satan. A few minutes later, he's talking to the companions. Over the next 2 hours, he claimed that God and his family can save people. He didn't want anyone to get hurt. He's asking his companion about the Bible. He's asking if his family's in heaven. Asks the companion to read Psalm 23 to him. He's going on a rant about seeing his family again. Asking if he kills himself, will he see his family again? A nurse comes in, he refused medications and asked for his Bible. Companion told officers all of this, and they, quote, didn't seem to care. On April 5th, Mr. Allen wanted to write to the chaplain. He says, I want to donate my Bible and everything I have. Will you please make sure it gets into the right hands? I know you will. Thank you, God, for sending your own son, Jesus Christ, to die. Thank you for life, God, on the cross for my sins. Please and thank you for forgiving Rick Allen's sins. Be with everyone. Amen. So Rick talks to his dad like at 3 a.m. on the 4th. He talks to his mom at like 5 a.m. on the, no, I'm sorry, the 3rd. I don't know what I said. Rick talks to his dad at like 3 a.m. on the 3rd of April. He talks to his mom at like 5 on the 3rd of April. He talks to Kathy at like 7 or 8 in the morning on the 3rd of April. He doesn't remember the conversations like with it that he's had. Like he doesn't remember 2 hours prior. He's lucid. He's like, I feel like I'm losing my mind. I feel like they're fucking with me. I feel like I'm going crazy. I feel like they're doing things to me. And then 2 hours later, he talks to his mom about Jesus and God. And, oh, I love, like, he's wanting to pray. And then the next call is to Kathy when he says, I think I did it. And she hangs up and calls the attorneys. That was their first confession. April 3rd was when Rick snapped. Something happened to Rick between the day that his attorneys came to visit him on the 24th and April 1st. What did they do to him? What did they do to Rick? So there's another really important thing. Oops. It's not in here, I don't think, but living conditions. No, that's not what I wanted. Oh, here, let's do this. Let's see what fucking Harshman the thumb has to say, the big dumb thumb. What do you have to say for yourself, you big dumb thumb? I had a close friend of mine who was trying to commit suicide. I knew it was because he was trying to sell his bed, and that stood out to me. Rick trying to give everything away is a terrible sign. Yes, it is. How long had he been kept from sleeping by the early morning of April 3rd? That's a good question. So the Baston letter is dated April 1st. April 1st is when the Baston letter is dated, and that's when he's saying that they're abusing the fuck out of him and screaming at him all hours of the night. So, I don't know. Once Rick, this is Harshman, by the way. Once he was arrested and detained, I began to monitor his communication from the facilities where he was housed. Sort of inadvertently, I appointed myself, I guess. The caretaker of the phone calls and some of the video footage. Things that we were receiving from DOC. When I talked to now Lieutenant Holman about it, it seemed like a smart thing to do to have one person concentrating just on that, just due to the volume of work involved in surveilling him constantly. This is also true. This happened in the Carroll County Jail. Y'all can Google it. We'll talk about it another time, I guess. They're fucking with him, and then he cracks. They implement suicide watch to put in note takers. When Rick makes a call, anytime Rick picks up the phone or the tablet or whatever to call someone, Harshman gets a text. The second that phone is activated, Harshman gets a text message. And then he's notified via text that a call's been made, and it basically tells me what time and who the call's made to. And then he can literally get onto a website through GTL, pull the call, and listen to it. Immediately almost. Remember Nick said in that HTC interview he did the other day, within a couple hours, usually the same day, immediately. Oh, but I'm currently up to date on all the phone calls Rick made. I keep notes. The calls I believe contain pertinent information, I notify Lieutenant Holman and Investigator Mullen. And then Investigator Mullen will generally send that call to a stenographer and get a transcript written. I'll put it in the state police case report. It involves so much time, there's a backlog. But I know once they're transcribed, the Investigator Mullen has a copy of the actual transcripts, so. Would you agree that one of the items of ongoing discovery that accumulates is because calls are being monitored, and if there's something significant, there's a recording being created? Oh, it never ends. Every day it goes on and on. I've reviewed is the video that I've reviewed is the movement video that DOC utilized when transporting Rick from one place to another. Just recently, and I'm not completely finished with all of them, but I've received the bulk of them from DOC. Medical specific transports. Medical specific transports. So this is Harshman's testimony from April 1st, 2024. Okay, April 1st, 2024. This is Harshman's testimony. April 1st. No, I'm sorry, August. Fuck that. Forget what I said. This is August 1st, 2024, Harshman's testimony. Just recently, Harshman says, I got all the video, the transport video, just recently of Rick going to and from his medical appointments. And also the inside of his appointments is also filmed. So Harshman just got all of that. So is that how Harshman knows about this, quote, confessions that only the killer would know, or his little van confession? Like, that's kind of harsh, man. So Harshman gets to hear Rick in these handheld videos. Can't hear him in the cell, but who cares what's happening in the cell? That's irrelevant to us. They're just entitled to it, Judgy, and I'll tell you why in a second. You've been watching these videos and listening to these calls, so you're hearing his perspective on his circumstances. And you can also watch the video of how he's being moved around, right? Yeah. There's at least 2 people moving him and 1 person recording him. And there's oftentimes other people present. I don't think I've ever seen less than 3 people transporting him. When I refer to staff, I mean nursing staff, medical staff. Those should probably go together. But let me say Dr. Martin and Dr. Walla. This is Brad, Rosie questioning him, right? So were you able to observe times where he's making incriminating statements in the presence of medical providers? And Harshman says, yeah. And Brad says, there are instances where it's a medical visit, correct? And Harshman says, yeah. So they're filming his medical appointments, and then they're giving that footage to Brian Harshman, and it goes to Mullen and Holman. There's a period of time where confessions are being made, right? Harshman says, yeah. There's a phone call to his wife and mother. Have you reviewed that? Yeah. And if they're during a movement within the jail, he's being reported. Have you observed those? Yeah. And some of those actually involve a medical visit, right? Yeah. Ready? I've seen most of it. I still have a few to go through. And then I also noted during the whole process, I've also been involved in what the suicide companion door sheets, the notes that were written there. I would get with Investigator Mullen or Lieutenant Holman, and I'd notify them, or they would notify me if they saw on the door sheets something that looked pertinent and was documented by either an inmate suicide companion or an officer. And as a result of those door sheets, I did a follow-up and conducted interviews with DOC officers. Door sheets, by the way, I asked another question earlier. Here. Also, during the summer hearings, during Brad Rosie's direct examination of the warden is asked, why did the prison switch out suicide companions for prison guards in early 2023, in April 2023? The warden says, oh, that was done to protect the confidentiality of Rick's legal mail that he had gotten And because, you know, his behavior had become bizarre, so we wanted to keep him safe, so we switched out the suicide companions for guards. Do you all want to know the real reason that they switched out the suicide companions for guards? It's pretty fucked. By using guards, they didn't have to, those were no longer medical records. They could just get them directly from the guards. So Plus program participants have mental health training, and they're bound by confidentiality. You know who's not bound by confidentiality? A DOC guard standing by the door, keeping a log sheet of what you're doing. Those can go directly to Jerry Holman or Brian Harshman. They shouldn't, but they can. And they did. So that is why they switched out Plus companions for guards. Because the Plus companions, their log sheets go to Walla, and then there's a whole thing. You have to subpoena and get a court order and blah, blah, blah. It's really just a pain in the ass. We don't have time for that. We need to know exactly what's going on with Rick, exactly when it's going on, so that we know when we have to forcibly extract the psychotic pretrial detainee from his cell and march him around with the camera on him so we can get him confessing while he's fully psychotic. Harshman, the big dumb thumb, says, one of the things that I started noticing was in early March, he began to be involved in reading the Bible. He proclaimed numerous times on March 21st he found Jesus. And then in some of those calls, he calls his family, you know, and then he made statements at the same time. This guy's so dumb, he doesn't realize that he's basically endorsing psychosis, but it's okay. It was interesting because the change in his demeanor really began to coincide with just several days later, the confessions started. I bet it did. I bet they did, you big dumb thumb. I bet they did. So as soon as Rick has this religious experience, he's having religious delusions all of a sudden. Somebody knows better than to just like, oh God, well, no, this isn't psychosis. Let's change his religious affiliation to Christian so it looks like he's always been a Christian. Harshman's only ever been in charge of the carnival grounds. Yeah, no, several days later after he has this religious awakening, he starts to confess because he feels so guilty. Direct confessions that I've been able to find, says Harshman, is, you know, telephone calls, videos, door sheets. I'm 60 plus confessions in at this point, and that's a conservative number without a doubt. Listen to this. The first confessions were obviously Mrs. Allen, meaning Kathy, and his mom were very upset. Rightfully so. I mean, it's difficult to listen to. His conversation with them about it, because, you know, that's their husband, their son. Clearly, it's an extremely difficult time for them. As the confessions went on, Janice, Richard's mother, would say, don't fucking call her Janice just because you're listening to them have their conversations for a year. You don't know her. Don't call her Janice, you disgusting pervert. Richard's mother would say, they're messing with you. They're messing with your mind. And Kathy would kind of reiterate the same thing. Oftentimes, Kathy would tell him to stop talking. Stop talking. I'm going to call Brad. I don't know whether it ended on her or his end. Initially, disbelief, I would say. Stop talking. You don't know what you're saying. They're messing with your mind. Is there a period of time where he doesn't communicate with his family at all? Yeah, there's been some periods of time where for various reasons he's gone an extended period, at least by his standards, of not communicating with them. I think at one point his tablet broke or he broke it, so he had to wait to get another one. I think that he maybe had lost his communication privileges for a while for some incident that happened. I don't know. Here's what I think. I think that Rick made a conscious decision not to call his family because he was afraid that he'd self-incriminate and upset them while he was psychotic because he wouldn't remember. Right. November, I think, might have been the second week in November, early on, he makes a statement to Kathy, quote, if this becomes too much for you, let me know. I'll talk to detectives. I'll tell them anything they want to know, everything they want to know. As early as November, Rick knows that the way to make this go away is just to admit, like, to confess or to tell them what they want to hear. In February of this year, Rick made a statement that was documented by a DOC guard. I don't have the report with me, but it was somewhere along the lines of he was talking to himself and he apologized for killing Abby. So this is interesting. So this is August 2024 is this transcript where it's from. Harshman's talking about February 2024, right? So they're trying to say, oh, Rick was lucid and not psychotic when he was confessing, blah, blah, blah. Really? Then why is he talking to himself? So you still have guards standing at his door in February 2024 at Wabash, is what you're saying. You still have guards taking down everything he says in February 2024 at Wabash. He's talking to himself, but he's not psychotic? Okay. Fine. Mr. Allen does state a lot of the time that he feels like he's being mentally tortured. And he has been pressed by family, you know, are they hurting you? Are they hurting you? Are they making you? As far as physical torture, he always says no. He believes that psychological and mental torture is what they're doing. And he equates that to functions like it's loud in the prison at night. It keeps him awake. The lights are always on. It bothers him. A lot of these activities he correlates with being a torture tactic the DOC is using to mentally and psychologically affect him. Because it is. Because they are. Were there specific instances that you were interviewing a particular officer companion who documented a confession that was that coincided with a behavior that would be considered bizarre? And did the officer make any statement to you with regard to having an opinion about whether he was faking it? This is Stacy Diener asking Harshman about whether or not the guards had opinions about whether Rick was faking his symptoms or not. Guards. DOC guards. Rosie says, objection. He's objecting. Judge says, overruled. Harshman says, yes, they believed he was faking it. I interviewed a total of 10 officers, and 8 out of 10 thought he was faking it. Rosie says, you have no idea what the conversations were between the inmate companions and Mr. Allen, do you? Nope. So from the beginning, there was a plan in place to monitor all of his communications, right? Yeah. And that plan involved getting in touch with the phone company and having access to his calls, right? And making arrangements with DOC to obtain video in cell 24/7. Yeah. And that also involved getting access to phone calls from the rec phone. Listen to this part, y'all. It's my understanding that any call that uses his DOC PIN number, other than his legal team or his attorneys, is recorded on the GTL. That's my understanding. Do they have a phone that they used to bring on the block, or like a mobile phone that they pass around every couple of weeks? The answer is yes. They do. And I believe that's the mobile phone that Wally used. 8 out of 10 prison guards agree. Torturing fellow humans is bizarre behavior, allegedly. In my opinion, torturing people is bizarre. But if the guard sheets aren't medical, how can they give a semi-medical opinion? Great question, post-punk. Look, he does it again. Rosie says, so there's no privacy afforded to Rick in any aspect when he, in any respect, when he was in the cell in terms of communication with the outside world, right? And then Harshman says, and when he makes a call out, he's notified that everything's being monitored and recorded. Before he makes the call, and even folks like Kath, keep her name out of your fucking mouth, you pervy weirdo. You don't know her. Just because you're a voyeur and you're surveilling and listening to literally all of his calls with his wife and mother doesn't mean you get to call her Kathy, okay? You fucking pervert. But Mrs. Allen and his mother are also notified on the recording. You know, you're receiving a call. And these calls are subject to monitoring. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Harshman. We're not fucking born yesterday, you stupid idiot. Well, the only way for Rick to talk to his family about his circumstances surrounding the case would be phone, right? Or through the attorneys. Well, but to talk to them directly about the case, he'd have to do it through the phone, right? Yeah. The most important thing in his life. He's incarcerated. He's facing accusations. Yeah, he did talk about the case to his family. And he's not able to do that without the police listening. No. So there was a pretty involved process to make sure that all of this information funneled to you pretty quickly, wasn't there? Yes, is the answer. But Harshman says, I don't think that's a fair statement. Nothing seemed to funnel to me quickly. I bet it didn't. I bet it didn't. I get text messages. I'm talking about everything, videos, etc. You're talking about calls. Have you ever monitored an offender like this? Yeah, over the years. Okay. Anybody that has been at DOC awaiting trial of something they've not yet been convicted of? No. So when you're watching these videos of Rick in his cell, you're seeing everything he's doing, right? Correct. If he goes to the bathroom, you get to watch it, don't you? Not exactly what I want to do all day, but yeah, I do see it. Did you see a video, officers wearing patches? Did you see a video of Rick being transported to get a haircut where the DOC realizes that he has something on his chest and he rips it off, like a patch? I remember him getting a haircut a couple times. I don't remember someone ripping a patch off. Did anybody in law enforcement communicate any of that to you? I mean, at one point they were talking about someone having patches. Again, that's outside my lane. You interviewed a bunch of guards, right? As far as I know, none of them had patches. Did you ask them? Yeah. And they all denied it, right? Yeah. None of the guards that you interviewed mentioned they had anything to do with patches or Odinism? No, none of them mentioned that. When they put Rick on close supervision, they even take his blanket away, don't they? I would say there's a reason for that. Yeah, the answer is yes, right? The answer is yes. They take his blanket. So they strip him down to the bare essentials. Do you agree that a lot of the things he said occurred, almost all of them? I think you said in April, maybe into early July, right? Yeah, the abundance of these confessions. And the majority of the statements I would consider, I'm going to use the phrase generic, where he's just saying, I killed them, or I killed those girls, right? Diener says, I object to the form of the question. And Rosie says, it's cross-examination. And Gull's like, overruled. Did you hear him early on in his period of incarceration from November 2022 until March 23 professing his innocence? Harshman says, yes, he professed his innocence. And did you hear him professing his innocence again in July, August, September, October until the end of his stay? It would vary. There'd be times where he would profess his innocence and then he'd follow it up with the, I don't know how to explain it. It's not a direct confession, but, something along the lines of an excuse for why he said what he said. But yeah, he's confessed his guilt and he's tried to confess his innocence. He'll say things like, well, they say I confessed. Like he makes reference to a phone call or something. In November 2022, you told Ms. Diener that Rick was suggesting to Kathy, if they want me to just do an interview with the police, I'll do that. He was fine with that. If it gets to be too much, I'll go to the investigators and I'll talk to them and I'll tell them everything they want to know. He's taking a chivalrous approach with his wife. He was taking a chivalrous approach with his wife to the situation. You don't have any training in psychiatry, do you? No. You don't have any opinion about the impact that long-term solitary confinement could have on a mental state? No. No. Based on an educated guess? No. Okay. April 2nd. Rick says, I found Jesus. He calls his mom. I found Jesus, but he said he hasn't slept well. He couldn't fall asleep at all. He hadn't slept in days on April 2nd. April 3rd. The incriminating statements begin. McClellan plays the call in court. Here's the confession. Ready? This is a confession. I killed Abby and Libby. No, you didn't, says Kathy. I think I did, says Rick. They are messing with you, says Kathy. I think I did, says Rick. I don't know. I wish they would kill me and let me apologize, says Rick. There's your confession. That's what McClellan blew his fucking load over April 3rd. These are all in April and May. All in April and May. All in April and May and June. All of them. I love you, says Rick. I can't explain what's been going on. In spring, Alan begins to tell his family he found God, later begins confessing. Even as Alan confessed in many of the calls, he also seemed to express confusion and believed that he was losing his mind. All right. So here's what Dr. Walla's own fucking notes say. April 4th. Walla's own notes. Poor, critical, deteriorating, suicidal ideation, delusion, death would bring relief, insomnia, poor appetite, hopelessness, low self-esteem. This continues for days, actually. I'm going to read this off because I can't share it. Can y'all hear me still? I agree with Jenny here. Rick also thought that they were poisoning his food as part of why he stopped eating. He also thought they were poisoning him while he was in the shower, which is interesting because they moved him to shower a lot. That's also when they filmed him. He thought that there was something in the soap. And that sounds crazy, right? It either is or it isn't. So Rick has not slept as of March 3rd. Rick has not slept in over 24 hours. Monica Wallow makes a point to document that Rick had a visit with his attorneys on March 24th. Rick had a visit with his attorneys again on the 3rd or 4th of April, remember, when they went to see him? And then they filed the motion the next day, the emergency motion. That's when they took the picture of him. So when they took that picture of Rick, the one when he looks all disheveled with the stuff on his, and he looks crazy, that is the day that all of these confessions are happening. Yeah, that looks like a man who's really in his right mind. In the evening, Rick starts confessing. He's talking, he asks his suicide companion to read the Bible with him. He's withdrawing from staff. This is a drastic shift in his behavior. He said he had not slept in 2 days. He says, I don't know what I'm doing. When asked if he remembered his visit yesterday, he said no. He thought Dr. Walla was a cop. He asked Dr. Walla if she was a cop. Who in here said that, Grace Face? What are you, a cop? He literally did. He asked her if she was a cop. Mm-hmm. He reported that he called his dad and told him not to send any money because he wouldn't need it anymore. He said his wife was coming to pick him up. I don't know what's going on. Everything's going backwards. I don't know what's going on. Everything's going backwards. I feel like I'm losing my mind. When asked if he knew why he was being monitored by officers instead of inmates, he says, oh no, sorry. So this is, okay. So this is April 2nd. I don't know when they claimed that they pulled the inmate companions off, but they pulled those inmate companions off at least like April 1st. They put them on suicide watch April 1st, and they switched with guards on April 1st or the 2nd. When asked if he knew where he was, if he was oriented to space and time, he said Westville, but he thought he was in Miami. Ready? When informed that Rick needed to communicate so that she could better help him, he did not speak. It was unclear if he was displaying effects of sleep deprivation. It It was unclear if he was displaying effects of sleep deprivation or if he was behaving for secondary gain. These behaviors appeared after his visit with his attorney, Walla says. So what I believe that they are trying to do is they're trying to attribute his psychotic break to something that happened while he was with his attorneys. They're going to blame his attorneys, or they're going to say he saw the discovery and he started faking it. Wallace shouldn't even fucking know. All these fucks are worse than the prisoners, 100%. Y'all have been watching him, you know he's not sleeping. Be so fucking for real. Even Kathy didn't know you couldn't get away with running a concentration camp when he was with. Yeah, they knew. Walla asks him again on April 4th about a virtual visit with his wife. Dangle, 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 dangle. Dangle, dangle, dangle. He wants to go home and see his family. He wants to go home and see his family. All I need is God and my family. He won't let this last forever. That's all I'm going to say. He won't let this last forever. That's all I'm going to say. Mr. Allen's placed on close suicide watch on April 4th. Crying, screaming, laying down, screaming, reading the Bible, screaming, slipping things under his door, screaming. Yeah, nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. How long? Hey, do you know how long you've been here? Or no, Rick asks, how long have I been here? They say a month, and he starts screaming. Mr. Allen asks if apologizing would make things better. He talks about Satan. This is all on the 3rd and 4th, y'all, and 5th of April, all of this. Mr. Allen is taken for an out-of-cell session. Every day, Walla is meeting with him now. Every fucking day. Multiple times a day. She's just fucking always around. Mr. Allen was supposed to be taken for an out-of-cell session, but when the staff went to get him, he backed away from them, afraid, in his cell. He later agreed to come out, and then he did the same thing again. So Dr. Walla went to his cell later. She went and got it. She went to his cell. He didn't want to see her, so she went. She's like, he doesn't want to come to me? Okay, I'll go. I'll go bug him. Observed crying at his cell window. This time he was successfully escorted. They extracted him from his cell. Do y'all know what a cell extraction looks like? Haldol starts a couple days after, I think. He did believe he was already convicted. He started listing names, maybe his family. Bizarre look on his face. Rick asked the meaning behind the chaplain's tattoos. What kind of tattoos did the chaplain have on his body? Who is the chaplain? What tattoos? Rick had sudden religiosity that was continuing, but there was a disingenuous feel to his presentation. Did you hear what I just said? Wallace says, Rick has experienced sudden religiosity that is continuing, but there was a disingenuous feel to his presentation. Just vibes. Just feels disingenuous. Man, why would Walla have such negative beliefs about Rick? I can't imagine why she would hold such automatically suspicious or cynical beliefs about her patient. Oh wait, she listens to 2.5 hours of The Murder Sheet and Gray Hughes and Anthony Greeno on her way to work every day. Every day. Walla goes to work and listens to Gray Hughes and... Am I muted? The vibes were off. That's weird, Judgy. Let's look into that later. That's bizarre. Chaplin is a woman with no tattoos. Interesting. That's a problem. We'll look at that later. Yeah, they also say he confessed because he found God, but now they're saying it's disingenuous. Wait a second. Wait a damn minute. Thank you, ma'am. Eating papers. He's eating paper. Eating paper. Not sleeping. There is no God. Quote, is Teskey the chaplain, ? I tried to look up who Teskey could be. I couldn't find anyone named Teskey. Nonsensical. Oh, quote, I, Richard Matthew Allen, killed Abby and Libby all by myself. Nobody helped me. That's his confession. I, Richard Matthew Allen, killed Abby and Libby all by myself and nobody helped me. He's shouting that. And these are from the log sheets, y'all, in his cell. Nobody helped me. I did it all by myself. And by the way, the scene was not Odinistic. It's not funny. Was the chaplain not a chaplain? Good question. Nobody helped me. I'm not crazy. I'm only acting crazy. Everyone's life is important. God created the earth. Believe in God or go to hell. Pacing. Humming. Pacing. Humming. I'm sorry, dear God. I'm sorry. Humming. I'm sorry. I smoked crack in 2003. I cheated on a cigarette. I'm a Libra. And I started World War III. Rick says, Sergeant, I think I finally get it. Sergeant, I think I finally get it. Sergeant who? Bitchmaid? You finally get what? Staring out window, shouting, I want to confess. I know a lot more. I want to confess. Pacing. Wakes up and says, I'm ready to take the test. I'm ready to sign my confession. I'm ready to take the test. I'm ready now. If I can't breathe, am I okay? Asking for a bunch of people. Attorney, judge, chaplain, wife. Ready to confess. I'm ready to take the test. I'm ready to read my file. Why won't you talk to me? He says to the companion. I feel like I should know you. Asking about his wife. Asking if everybody in his family is okay. Asking to say sorry to everyone. Screaming. My wife is waiting. Is Kathy here? I want to talk to her. Can I get a picture taken of me with my Bible? I'm ready to take the test. Can I have a pen? I'm sorry, God. Fuck. Bizarre behaviors. I'm not going to read. We already know what those are. There's just a lot of... This is all psychosis. Foxtrot. Fuck. Foxy lady. Fuck me. Foxy lady. Remember those from the... T read those off once, I remember. Pacing back and forth. I swear to God, I'm ready to take the test. Ready to confess. Pushing on the cuff port. I'm fucking done. Drinking toilet water and hot sauce. Drinking toilet water and hot sauce. Why does he have hot sauce? Yeah, I don't know. I need more about that. Teskey was a Westville inmate. I haven't found an employee yet. Interesting. Isn't it weird the psychopath is the one giving the mental health treatment? It sure is. Didn't we think that they did shut off his drinking water at one point? Yep. They give him hot sauce, but no water and no blankets. Remember he's drinking out of the toilet? Hot sauce would improve the flavor of the... Yep. Can I take the test now? Can I take the test now? Flushing things down the toilet. Flushing things down the toilet. I killed Abby and Libby. Flushing things down the toilet. Random words. Talking to someone who's not there. Getting loud. Ordering companion to stop breathing. Messing with the cuff port. I knew I was going to fail the lie detector. I knew I was going to fail the lie detector. Didn't we hear something about Rick in a lie detector? Thinking that, oh, well, Rick didn't want to take it because he would have failed. Interesting. Rick says, this is, what day is this? This is April 8th. Quote, they're giving me drugs to make me this way. I did this to myself. Let my wife know. I hope she loves me. I killed them so my family had more time to live. There's a bomb put inside of me. Destroy the world. I think someone broke my wrist, hitting the cuff port. I don't know if I'm asleep or awake. Crying, screaming, crying, screaming. Let's see what happens on. Oh, I think he was drugged. Mumbling about being a sex addict per the suicide companion log. I'm sure he said, I, Richard Allen, am a sex addict, and I committed the offenses as charged, and I, Richard Allen, killed Abby and Libby all by myself, and nobody helped me. It was so much worse than we can, like, literally ever imagine. Gibberish, gibberish, gibberish. Singing, screaming, singing. Several officers escort him to a nurse. Okay, this part's upsetting to me, and I need more information about it. Rick is offered medical at 11:15 and refuses. But then at 11:40, several officers escort him to a nurse. But then at 11:45, he's back in his cell. So at 11:15, he declines, he refuses a nurse visit. But then at 11:40, they escort him to the nurse, and then he's back in his cell at 11:45. Weird. Sounds like that's just weird. Right, the guy with no porn, not any porn on his computer. He's writhing, he's shaking. On 4/13, Mr. Allen's condition has altered a great deal. Dr. Martin is requesting to personally assess him. Remember, everybody, they are just ignoring him. These are not companions anymore. They're guards, but they're just letting him do this like engage in these behaviors. Like, no need to intervene. He's fine. But we'll see him hurting himself and drinking out of the toilet and drinking hot sauce and covering his body in feces and ingesting it and banging his head so hard on his wall and door that he's black and blue and bloody and throwing himself off of his sink so that he's trying to break his neck. We're watching him do all of these things, not intervening. But on the 13th, Dr. Martin was requested to assess him. He was brought up to be cleaned. He wasn't walking. He was carried by officers. He was basically catatonic. This is probably one of the videos that they showed. Eyes closed. A reddened area on his forehead. There was a noticeable reddened area on Rick's forehead. The warden said he had been saluting repeatedly. So the warden is covering up for the fact that Rick's forehead is fucked up because they let him self-injure. And the warden, by the way, is in the medical appointment with Rick and Dr. Martin on the 13th. So Dr. Martin notices a red area on Rick's forehead from where he's injuring himself, and Gallipoux says, "Oh, well, he's been saluting repeatedly. He's." Dr. Martin let him talk. Mental status exam. Look, a formal evaluation was not possible because Rick was not stable enough to cooperate. He wasn't even stable enough or lucid enough for a mental status exam, which is basically like, do you know where you are? Do you know what day it is? Do you know your name? He wasn't even lucid enough for that. Flight of ideas. President Kennedy's assassination, Navy SEALs, tangential speech. He mentions Easter Sunday. He has no idea. He doesn't know when it was or whether or not it occurred already. He did not know the year. He appeared only oriented to self and not to time, place, or situation. Oriented to self is not a thing. So I imagine what this means is he knew his name. Eventually, he was asked to be taken back to his cell. Dr. Walla contacted Dr. William Mays. Who's that? M-A-Y-S? And discussed the findings. There appeared to be a psychotic process going on, but there was no clear cause. Dr. William Mays. Yeah, there's a psychotic process going on, but no clear cause. Ready? It was noted that Rick met with his lawyers just prior to his deterioration. Dr. Mays concurred that Mr. Allen could have been psychotic. Urgent meeting was called to discuss involuntary medication. He didn't appear to be having hallucinations and was not verbalizing delusional material, but he had become very religiously preoccupied. He was verbalizing delusional material. Yep, Dr. Martin had to admit he was wrong. Video showed that he was clearly not oriented to self. Right. He admitted to the charges mentioned in Psalm 23, but it was not clear which aspects of this passage were important to him. He was very concerned about his wife and about her being hurt. He wanted to say goodbye. He verbalized guilt. He was endangering his own health by eating his own feces and missing full meals and not sleeping. Multidisciplinary meetings included the warden, psychologist, psychiatrist, and Centurion director of behavioral health. He experienced a slow decline over the last few weeks, destroying legal work, doing other things. The onset appeared adjacent to a recent meeting with his attorney. Walla is obsessed. Dr. Monica Walla is fucking obsessed. Obsessed with Rick and his case and his attorneys and his guilt, because she's not a doctor. She's a true crime fan, voyeur cop who is personally acutely invested in his guilt and conviction. Haldol, 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 Haldol. When asked if he wanted to come out for a session, Rick said, nope. Good for you. Fuck you, Dr. Walla. He seemed to be perseverating over truth and veterans, both of which he had mentioned previously. Slowed thought process, tangential, blocked, slowed thinking, impaired attention, minimal insight, impaired judgment, underproductive speech. Eating Band-Aids. Okay. Unresponsive, 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 unresponsive. I'm ready to take the test. I'm ready to take the test. What is my name? I confess to everything I did. I confess to everything I did. I'd like to see Kathy, my wife, please. I'd like to see Kathy. The warden and director of nursing are present. They talked about providing him with a tablet. Why the fuck is the warden present at all of Rick's medical and psych and behavioral health meetings? The warden, who's like, I don't know anything. There are a lot of military references for the entire mainstream media to reject all the importance of his military background. I believe this too. Rick asked, did I really say that? Did I really say and do all that stuff? He repeated, he said he was afraid of things getting worse. He was having nightmares. He wasn't sleeping, poor quality, unsure if he had slept or if he had not slept in days. He has fears of being killed, of being starved, of not having water. Fears of not having water. He said that he thought that perhaps his decompensation could have been due to not taking his Seroquel, which had not been prescribed by DOC. Isn't that interesting? He endorsed paranoia, concerns about his safety, feeling that interactions with Dr. Walla were unsafe. Ready? In line with paranoia, Rick mentioned confessing and Dr. Walla writing everything he said down. He felt tricked by her. He also described feeling like the soap could be poisonous. He wanted an in-person visit with his wife more than anything. Wallace said she'd advocate for this for him once he regained stability. But an absolute fucking monster. I don't even think I did it anymore. I don't even remember if I did it. But I already confessed and I can't go back in time. It doesn't matter. I'll never see my family again. Tangential, getting worse, afraid of not having basic needs provided, getting killed, dying alone, not being able to say goodbye to his family, nightmares, getting raped, not feeling safe, but unable to explain why. Bitch, really? He reported he wanted to be euthanized by Dr. Frank, who was a vet at his wife's previous workplace. He started World War III, and he said his wife will get a flag because he was still a veteran. Preoccupied with sleep, he said he seemed to wake up but didn't remember falling asleep. When referencing dreams and nightmares, he was actually referencing to actual events that really happened. He reported he's unable to sleep, but his logs indicated that his sleep had improved. Oh, so we're basing this off of logs. This is the logs from the guards that are lying. This will take forever. When asked what he meant, he said, to get back to a place before I lost my mind. He wanted to sign his confessions. I lost my mind. I think I have paranoid schizophrenia like my grandfather. When asked why he was consuming what he was consuming, he said, because I was afraid I wouldn't have water. Wallace says that doesn't make any sense, and he says, I know. He wanted to talk to his wife. He said he wanted to see his wife and attorneys. He said, quote, methamphetamine, end quote, randomly. When asked if he had used any substances, he couldn't provide a clear response. When asked if he wanted a drug test, he said yes. His behavior, however, had improved and did not present as psychotic. These are confessions. These are the confessions that they're talking about. Yeah, Rick asks the guards for their water bottles, and they attribute this to his behavioral problems, him repeatedly asking them for their bottled water. Interesting. Do you want a drug test? He says, yeah. Dr. Walla makes a diagnosis on May 3rd. Brief psychotic disorder with marked stressor characterized by the presence of disorganized speech, grossly disorganized, and catatonic behavior. But at the same time, she's saying that there seems to be some progress. What the fuck is wrong with this bitch? He's confessing that he needs water. In a video, Mr. Allen is getting his handcuffs taken off. He looks confused and unresponsive. He continuously attempts to put his hands back through the cuff port. Officers grip his hands and explain instructions. They enter the cell, sit him down on his bed. He was resisting and seemed to be in physical discomfort and afraid of the officers. Just want to sign my confession. Dr. Allen was to continue to have officer companions instead of suicide watch companions. May 11th, signed Dr. Walla. Bitch lied on the stand under oath and said, I don't know who ordered the suicide companions. Dr. Walla, you a fucking cop, girl. You a fucking cop. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. Sad. Mr. Allen reports to Dr. Walla that his attorney visit didn't go well because he couldn't trust them because they're playing good cop and bad cop. So Dr. Walla continues to ask Rick about his attorney visits, that they're also filming. They discussed the date and brought his calendar. He asked, so I missed Tuesday? He mentioned feeling like he was already dead and he had already committed suicide. He couldn't sleep due to pulsating vibrations in his stomach. During the session, he would stand up and down and his knees would buckle. His knees were buckling. But unclear why. Oh, ready? May 17th, 2023. He mentioned being concerned that Dr. Wall is writing a book about him. She explained that this was not possible due to ethics. Due to ethics. He said he told his lawyers he had concerns about some of the staff killing him because they had Odin patches, which means they don't believe in God. He had a dream in which he was killed. He said he feels like he is killing his family. He finally stated he wanted to speak with his mother. She said she wrote him letters daily, but he said he did not receive them. Okay, I love you, bye. I'm sorry, it's stressful. Again, diagnosed brief psychotic disorder. One video shows Mr. Allen refusing to remove his hands from the cuff port. Officers warned that they'll use a taser if he doesn't move his hands. At some point in these videos, Rick has massive bruises and wounds on his hands. A brief psychotic reaction to stress. Dr. Walla asks if his wife is coming to see him with his attorneys today. Did not always work. She told him she'd ask. He asked her if he was in hell. Love you and you can continue to fight. You are a bad-ass boss. AKA Radar. AKA Radar is a badass boss. AKA Radar. Takes no shit. Ew. Running into the door, running into the door, running into the door. When asked if he wanted to come out of his cell for a session, he did not want to. When asked about the cuts and bumps and abrasions on his forehead, he explained, I thought they wanted me to do it. Who? Who wanted you to do it? Who wanted you to do it, Ricky? His face was swollen and puffy and bruised after banging his head. When asked why he did this, he said, I don't know. He said he did it because the officers were telling him to. Over the weekend, he said he was hearing voices telling him to do it. He's hearing voices telling him to do it. I believe that. I'm not convinced they were in his head. Not being able to see my wife. Not being able to see my wife. He couldn't have his tablet because of his self-harm is what they're categorizing self-harm as non-compliant behavioral issues, and that's why he can't get his tablet back. I thought that he lost his tablet because it broke. But now they're saying that he can get his tablet back when there's a period of no self-harm in compliance with your treatment plan and your behavioral expectations. Did not want to come out for a session. Did not want to come out for a session. He doesn't fucking trust you, bitch. Yeah. Unable to sleep, unable to sleep. He paces because it makes him feel tired. He reiterated that the companion logs may have said that he was sleeping, but he was not. I also believe this. He's experiencing tremors, physical tremors. He wants his tablet back. He wants his tablet back. He wants his tablet back. They're not giving him his tablet back. When asked if he knew what date it was, he guessed April, then May. It was June. He's being told that he should kill himself, but not to mess it up and get it right. Who's telling him not to mess it up and get it right? Don't get it right this time. Do it right this time. I've lost my mind. The clinician informed him he'd be able to get his tablet back after a period of safe behavior. He says, I never know what to say to you. I never know what to say to you. He reported he had not been given a new Bible after destroying/flushing his own one 2 weeks ago. He mentioned his wife. Emergent involuntary medications were utilized. When asked what made him upset before the use of the medication, he said, I don't know. Voices in my head, I guess. Continued to complain of lack of sleep, despite logs suggesting that he was sleeping. The logs are saying that he's sleeping. Oh, the logs that are being written by the guards that are screaming and not letting him sleep? Is that what you mean? Mm-hmm. Involuntary medication utilized due to banging of his head. Emotional stressors identified. Limited communication with wife and family. Conflicts. Single cell placement. Awaiting trial. 6/4/2023. These are the calls that what's-his-face made, that Rick made that they played during trial. Alan makes a phone call where all he says is, I did it, without elaborating. That's not a confession. He refused to be seen out of his cell. Refused to be seen out of his cell. Involuntary injection used due to banging his head. Outwardly, he was in no distress, so it's unclear what his motive was for self-harm. Non-responsive. Do you know what month it is? He says, I don't know. How are you doing? I don't know. Are you experiencing hallucinations? I don't know. I'm still not sleeping, he says. Keep your own sleep log if you feel like the companion logs are not accurate. Dr. Walla challenged Rick and said that if he wanted to improve his sleep, he would make an effort. Refused a nurse visit. I'm not sleeping. I don't feel like I'm sleeping. Encouraged him not to lie down until he's tired. Provided sleep hygiene information, pamphlets, handouts. When asked the likelihood of attempting suicide, he said, I don't know, honestly. I don't want to do it, but I feel like I have to. Set Kathy free so she can move on and not have to worry anymore. He feels he's negatively impacting. He acknowledged that he lost his mind, overthinking. He didn't know how to move forward. He mentioned he hoped he would be able to attend his court date in a week for an opportunity to get out of here. Oh yeah? The dude who's not oriented to time or space brings up his court date to you, Walla? Doubt it. Doubt it, doubt it, doubt it. D-O-U-B-T-I-T, doubt it. Oh my god. His knees were buckling. His knees were buckling. His knees are buckling. But she's like, you're sleeping fine. The logs say you are. Refused a nurse visit. Refused a nurse visit. Refused a nurse visit. I did it, he says on the phone, but then says, I've lost my mind. I did it, but I've lost my mind. I did it, but I lost my mind. He reported feeling like an officer was attempting to get him to confess. He was worried about breaking his tablet again. He was unable to explain why. He expressed needing to know if Kathy was okay and said that he could not call her. When he was asked why, he said it's because he was breaking her heart. Unable to sleep, unable to sleep. He did not receive the sleep hygiene materials that were sent to him. He was informed that sleep was not treated with medication in the DOC. He didn't know what Haldol was. The logs were wrong, he says. He asserted that the logs were wrong. He's not sleeping. He couldn't explain why he refused recreation and showers recently. They discussed what would happen if there was continuous self-harm behavior, emergent medication, and possibly restraints. Rick says, I feel like I should be banging my head. I want to see my family because I'm going to be tased. He asked the writer to read him Psalm 23, which she did. When told that his lawyers would handle issues related to competency, Rick said, I'm not competent and nobody believes me. He doesn't know why he's in DOC. How can I trust my lawyers? So this is Walla basically. None of this is true. This is Walla just inventing shit. There are contradictions in his presentation. The secondary gain of being transferred to a different facility, specifically a state hospital. He wants to go to the hospital. He wants to go to a state hospital, and she's saying it's for secondary gain. Dr. Walla provided sleep hygiene material handouts. He would sporadically shake his hands and body. Dr. Walla asked, are you ready for court tomorrow? Rick says, I guess. Does everybody remember what Rick looked like on June 15th, 2023? June 15th, 2023. The day before this, Wallace says, are you ready for court tomorrow, Rick? He seems great. He's improved. I think he's faking it for secondary gain. He looks great to me, doesn't he? He can't even fucking stand upright. He looks like he's terminally ill. He's 136 pounds here. He lost 24% of his body weight. He's doing really good, says Dr. Walla. He's doing great. He's just faking it and doing, this is for secondary gain, obviously. Obviously. Dr. Walla went to his cell front after his court on the 15th and asked how it went. His presentation was not odd today. No odd look on his face, appropriate eye contact. Bitch, we watched him. We saw him. You're a liar. So remember the video that people watched in trial where he's being carried and he's catatonic? Wallace says he came out of his cell but used dead weight tactics and was carried to the counselor's room. He used dead weight tactics. He needed to make sure his wife was okay. He wanted to go to the hospital, requesting in-person visits. He felt his attorneys were not listening to what he wanted, such as him wanting to just plead guilty. Found it. Found it. Walla invented it. Walla reminded him that he could contact his attorneys through his tablet, and he said he couldn't, but he wouldn't say why. He physically acted like he was feeble. He said he couldn't sleep. The staff were going to let him bang his head again. I can't sleep. I can't sleep. It was felt that his presentation was inconsistent, disingenuous, and exaggerated. He appeared to be purposefully self-harming to receive Haldol injections to help him sleep. He was preoccupied with his officer companion. He said to the officer, "Don't make me hurt myself. They're making me think I should bang my head on the wall." He's worried about his wife and her well-being. Walla is obsessed with Rick's lawyers. Walla is obsessed with Rick's lawyers. She is obsessed. Drooling, staring off to one side, not wearing shoes, grabbing the bars as though he felt weak and was going to fall. His attitude was evasive. This bitch needs to be institutionalized. I really am convinced. Okay, I think we've had enough of this for tonight. There was one more thing. Rick was not a threat to anybody, right? This is the warden. No, there was some non-compliance. So when you don't comply, you get punished by getting tased? If we can't secure your door, yeah. Rosie asked the warden, were you aware that there was an active law enforcement investigation ongoing while Rick was detained in your prison? And the warden says, I wasn't aware of that. It wouldn't surprise me, but I wasn't aware of it. Were you aware that law enforcement officers were coming to your facility during Rick's stay and interviewing guards and inmate companions? I don't recall them interviewing any inmates. Really? If that were happening, would you have known about it? Oh, I would hope so. Warden doesn't remember what the name of the law enforcement officer was who came to him to talk about the detention circumstances of Rick. Warden can't remember anything, even though he was in every single medical and psych appointment, apparently, for Rick. And it's all filmed. They get more privileges as suicide companions. Even though some of them are convicted of crimes of dishonesty. Theft, fraud, forgery. Oh, and by the way, they're not allowed to communicate with the inmate, even though they all do. Did you ever discover that companions were talking to Rick about his circumstances? Personal, legal? No. Have you read, are you aware of the transcribed statement of inmate Lacey Patton? No. I don't even know who he is. I can't even see. Are you aware that, or have you been privy to the transcribed statement of inmate Jason Elliott? I'm not sure who he is either, so no. Do you believe that that would be a violation of Rick's privacy rights under your policies? And then Diener interjects. So stupid. The log sheets were supposed to go to Walla, filed in his medical record, and then put into the electronic medical record system. We received those. Can you tell the judge how is it that those log sheets got from your prison to law enforcement? And the warden's like, I don't know. Well, who at the prison could have given the log sheets to the investigators? I don't know. Maybe through subpoena. Maybe. We collect them. The suicide companion logs, different from door sheets, they go in a secure box. Dr. Walla picks them up, puts them in Rick's medical record, and uploads it to the EMR. So if it turns out that the evidence suggests that those did get in the hands of law enforcement, would you agree that was not at your command? No, not at my command. Did you ever give Rick permission, written or verbal, to release those records to anyone outside the prison? I released them to the central office. That's the only people who release them to. Well, and Dr. Walla collects them. Central office asked for all of the records, and they were given. And it's possible that central office gave all of that to law enforcement. Did you ever require anyone from law enforcement to get a court order to obtain these records? No. When you released those records to the central office, did you report any of that to Mr. Allen? Like, hey, just so you know, we released your records. You didn't seek any kind of consent, did you? No, they stayed within our agency. No, they didn't. They went to the police. They went to Holman and Mullen and Harshman. There's actually more than one phone. There's more than one phone. Let me withdraw the question. There are different services, GTL system, your own internal system. There's a phone. They move around to the cell door once or twice a week, right? A portable phone. Does anyone remember which phone Walla dialed for Rick? It was portable, wasn't it? That's a DOC phone. Do you monitor that one? Oh, yeah. So starting February something. Well, first of all, let's do this first. Only one person in the control room can see the videos of Rick. Constant watch. The video out of his cell, the handheld, that was a separate order specifically designed for Mr. Allen. And the order came at the same time or sometime after. Oh, that order came a few months later. Oh, once he was psychotic, you mean? They started filming him once he was psychotic. Isn't it interesting that the attorneys have never had an instance of meeting with Rick where their visits were filmed until he was psychotic? So having visual on him all times, what steps did you take? You know, just follow him around. Oh, they replaced his window though. We didn't want to interfere with his legal process, so we just gave him a new tablet for free. You got it, Judgy. Walla talking to him about, oh, do you want to plead guilty? Your attorneys won't let you. Meanwhile, he's catatonic. I don't look at the log sheets. Really, I thought that only Walla could look at them. Then he says here that if anyone went into Mr. Allen's cell for a routine search or shakedown, it would be me, the warden, the major, the lead captain. Major Cornet and lead captain Gary Lewis. I didn't know these words either, but the warden says apparently these are the only people allowed to go into Rick's cell. You're probably right, woman. That's probably why we don't have the transcript. So the highest of supervisors. Major Cornet is the highest ranking custody supervisor and the highest ranking custody supervisor in that unit. Wow. Wow, wow. At one point, did you have to have a conversation with an officer because there was an incident of self-harm and you wanted to reiterate to them your concern? Yes. My concern was that they needed to stop it. So they were telling him to kill himself and to hurt himself. And they weren't stopping him. Got it. Oh, when Rick first got there, the suicide log sheet box wasn't a secured box. And we found it necessary to put them in a secured box. We had a few that went missing. None of his. Sure. The only thing that's unique about the mail through the facility, it's copied. They don't get originals. But Mr. Allen did get his originals. Those were not copied. What was the reason for copying legal mail? Oh, introduction of drugs. A lot of legal mail is not really legal mail. It's just from a fake law address, and they can spray K2 or synthetic marijuana on it, and offenders get the legal mail and they smoke it. It's so weird that they're trying to attribute his psychosis to his attorney visit. Liar. This didn't happen. It was the April 5th. This one's dated April 5th, but the one that's written is dated March. You think he did it twice? I believe I did get more than one. No, he didn't. This one's weird too. I would get requests and papers. How did this get from your office to Internal Affairs? Do you have a runner? Oh, Internal Affairs comes to transport it. They'll come get it. In this case, the one who transported it would have been Mrs. Maps. Jessica signed it. An investigator for Internal Affairs. CPO, Certified Police Officer for the Department of Corrections. I also don't know who this is. Mhm. Were you present for some of his statements containing details? Not that I'm aware of. If I directed your attention to something with medical, oh, it's possible. I was in both. I'm not sure what he said during medical, but I was in both. I was in when he got his medications and they were recorded. They just admit it outright. They just admit it outright. Okay. I'm going to go to sleep. We'll finish another day. Irish goodbye.